All right, I'm going to call the Mashpee School Committee meeting for September 18th, 2004.
No, 2024.
2024.
Thank you.
I got married in 2004, and that's not now.
My apologies.
To Mr. Hanscom, yes, I'm sure.
All right. First,
Take two.
well, since I can't join the party in the back of the room, we'll all have to conduct our own party.
That's
up
right.
here, right? All right. First item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Mashpee Public Schools recognize and honor the many generations of Wampanoag people who live and have sustained in this territory for more than 10,000 years. I want to take and give everyone an opportunity for just 30 seconds of silence. If they so choose, they can use it however they want. All right, next item is to ratify the agenda for September 18th. You can tell school has started because we're now on the second page of the agenda. We're on the back page here. So, any changes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to ratify the agenda of September 18th, 2024.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay. Motion by Kelly, second by Dan. Any discussion? Hearing none. Dan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes also. Next item is public comment. And we do have one? We have none. Oh,
I thought you.
okay. I was all excited. All right. Next is the minutes that are in your packet for August 7th. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at those? If there are no changes or amendments, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Kathy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kelly. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, how do you vote?
I'll abstain.
Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
I'll abstain as well.
And Paul?
Yes.
And I will vote yes too. So approved. Next in your packet is the minutes for the August 21st meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the meeting minutes from August 21st, 2024 as presented.
All right. Motion by Brian. Do I have a second?
I will second.
And a second by Dan. Any amendments or just changes?
I did have a question. Was it supposed to be blank under search consultant motion second vote?
I will be honest with you, Ms. Lewis, is I was taking that in the meeting and the recording had given out, so I
Yeah.
had no way to
Okay.
refer to it. I apologize.
So, under that, there was a motion by the committee to empower the chair to find a search consultant. And the follow-up to that, Kathy, is on the agenda tonight.
If my recollection is correct, I think I made the motion. I believe Kelly seconded.
I was just, yeah.
Okay. All right, if we can amend the minutes for that addition. Any other items or questions? Hearing none? Dan, how you doing?
I vote yes.
Kathy?
Abstain?
Brian?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. So four, and one abstention. All right. Next item is the HVAC project, and we're blessed to have Kathleen Laurent come from the DPW and tell us the great things that are going on.
Good evening. So I'm here at your invitation. I don't know if you have specific questions or if you want me to just give you an update on where we are with the project.
Can you start with an update of where we are in the project?
Of course. So this is specifically the HVAC project at the Casey Coombs School. So as of today, I actually do have a handout. I don't think I brought enough copies for everyone.
It's only been 5.
I have 6. I have 6. So a colored floor plan, if you want to refer to the different spaces. So HP 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 are all operational, as is 7 and 8 as of this past weekend. HP 4 and 9 are complete. They just have not been started up yet. Startup of those units are expected within the next 2 days. Train, who will be doing the EMS, is expected to be down on October 5th, and balancing of the system will start on October 11th. That is a professional day, and that will take several weeks because basically they need to go to each unit for the startup, or the balancing, excuse me. So that is the status of the operation. In terms of construction costs, we are still waiting for updated proposed change orders. There was an error on the part of the contractor in what they were charging for overhead and profit. So the change orders were sent back to them for adjustment. The base bid price, as you may recall, was approximately $1.5 million. And with the known change orders at this point, and again, I'm waiting for adjustments, it would be between 90 and 100,000, which is 67% of the original bid price, which is well within what you would expect for a renovation project where change orders are generally between 5 and 10%. We will be getting a prescriptive rebate from National Grid because of efficiencies that are being made with the new system of approximately $260,000. So with those numbers, we're looking at approximate construction costs of $1.36 million.
Does anyone have any questions?
With the issue of the leak and the improper work being done, is that part of what you're waiting on those, the the adjustments for, or
No.
did that go to the insurance? Could you
Um,
explain a little bit
sure.
of what
So-
happened with that?
Sure. So part of the work is the units are being placed on the roof. During the summer, there was a rainstorm where water did get into one of the classrooms. The contractor had someone out to remediate that. All of the insulation in sheetrock was removed and replaced. That work is complete. That is at no cost to the town. Whether they absorb it or file their own insurance claim, I can't speak to, but it is not a cost that the town will be paying.
Maybe to piggyback off that, I know that it seemed like DPW ended up doing a lot of additional work with regard to cleanup. Are there any additional expenses related to that time spent?
So I did provide to the contractor an estimate of approximately $3,000, which was DPW labor, as well as some minor expenses that we incurred, asking for a credit in that amount that had to do primarily with cleanup on the project so that we could, our custodial class staff could get in to start preparing the classrooms for occupancy at the beginning of the school year. So we have asked for a credit for that amount.
Great, thank you.
Has it been granted? Do we know? Or
I'm still waiting on all of the change orders, which would include that credit.
Who, the general contractor is the project manager of the project at Coombs?
So the general contractor has their own project management staff. There is not an owner's project manager for the project. That is generally a separate firm that the town would hire. I think as Ashley may have explained at your prior meeting, the requirement under state statute to hire an owner's project manager is $1.5 million. We had not anticipated that the project would exceed that amount, and as just explained, it won't. The town can always hire an owner's project manager. That's an additional cost. Obviously, you're paying for that service. So the management really was done by town staff, whether DPW, school staff. There was
I'm
not
just concerned moving forward with all the stuff that was missed, that it's going to happen again.
I don't think anything was missed. I think that's the reason for the change orders. The change orders really were as a result of existing conditions that were unknown until you started the construction.
If we're paying somebody to come in and do an architectural design of this HVAC system, shouldn't they have found the stuff that wasn't right to begin with from the beginning?
They did not get up and look at all of the ductwork in the ceiling. That's not something that an engineering firm would normally do. They make certain assumptions based on plans that are provided to them by the town from prior projects. They may make spot inspections, but they're not going to put their eyes on every single component of the system.
So just following up on that, it's my impression that the as-built did not match the plans that the town had. Is that correct?
So we did not have as-built drawings. What we had were the original construction plans as well as plans for modifications that had been made to the building over the 40 years of its existence. So the existing conditions did not match what was shown on the most recent plans.
And who is generally responsible for ensuring that the work matches the plans?
So you would have an engineer or contractor, again, at the town's option to come back in and do an as-built plan. Doesn't
the town have someone normally look at work that's being done by contractors?
We do. So DPW staff would review, but again, we're not necessarily getting up to look at all of the work that's being done. And I guess just to explain further, the ductwork, it's all insulated ductwork. So looking at it from, outside, it looked perfectly fine. It's when you got in to start doing the modifications and removing that insulation that exposed some of the problems.
And there wasn't a pressure test done prior to installing your new equipment, is that correct?
There wouldn't have been a reason to do the pressure test before.
Okay.
Right. So does the building inspector go in and sign off on the permits that are pulled to do this work?
Yes, all of again, it's all permitted. What they're actually inspecting, they're not necessarily looking at every single foot of ductwork, every single unit.
So going back to post-COVID, when we had to redo all the HVAC systems so that the kids could go back to school, was there a duct test done when that work was done so that the kids could come back to school?
So we did not do HVAC work post-COVID. What we did was we had air quality testing that was performed at the 3 schools to determine if we needed to make repairs or adjustments to specific areas.
So, based on the experience that we've had here at Casey Coombs, can you just elaborate for the committee what's being done differently for the remaining projects?
So the 2 other schools, the middle high school and the Quashnet school, the construction cost will exceed the 1.5 million. So we do have an owner's project manager, which the town will be paying for that service. Again, they are just managing the service. They're not necessarily designing. We do have our design team that has been hired, that we're waiting on a feasibility study this Friday with options and some preliminary costs on what those projects will be so that we can make a decision for each school what the best option is moving forward and look at the available funding and whether or not additional funding might be needed to complete both projects. And I guess depending on the option, one of the other differences with the Coombs School was the simplest school, which was why we moved forward with that. The general contractor was the plumbing contractor. That is their trade. In a larger project, you usually have a separate general contractor that oversees all of the subs. So I think that was reflective of some of the issues that we had was a plumbing contractor serving as the GC on the project who may not have that experience. Again, it adds cost to the project, but it might help with some of the oversight issues that we had with this project.
How many bids came in out of curiosity for that project?
1.
Just the one, that's what, okay.
We had 1 qualified bid. We had 2. One of the second bid was not qualified. For these amounts that we're talking, dollar amounts that we're talking about, they have to be pre-qualified by DCAM, by the state, in the specific trades. So the second bid was not pre-qualified for the amount of the project. So we had 1 bid.
And then kind of tying into that, because the next project will be larger, there'll be subcontract bids going out. You'll have are you planning to do 1 bid overall for a general contractor and then subcontract out the other pieces, or are you going to just do an overall?
No, it's all dictated by the state. So even on this project, we had filed sub bids. So a filed sub bid is required if you estimate that trade will exceed $25,000 in value. So even for this project, we had a number of filed sub-bids with the general contractor, who was the plumbing contractor, overseeing all of those.
Got it. And then one last question, with this being the oldest building, the Quaffnet building, are there thoughts of maybe being a little bit more extensive in terms of that feasibility, where we weren't totally sure what was in the Coombs School? And I know we can't go into everything, but with this being the oldest building of the three, are there any thoughts, or I guess how are we gonna, I know we've done some work here, but I guess I'm just worried about seeing the cost in this specific building being higher because of the age and potential necessary additional work needed. I guess do you have thoughts on that, or have you guys talked about that at all? Or?
Until we receive that study and look at the options,
Okay.
and make a decision on which is moving forward, it's difficult for me to answer. But I think we will definitely make sure that we're doing more of our due diligence in assessing the existing condition.
Can that be forwarded to us, the feasibility, when you get it?
Of
Could
course.
you forward it to us?
Mhm.
Thanks.
And I guess a question, Mary Kate stepped out, but I know obviously there were repairs done to that teacher's room that had the damage. During the open house, it seemed like the cosmetics of it were still pretty shabby. Do we know if that's been completed and painted and all that fun stuff?
It has been. I mean, we will be doing a walkthrough and coming up with a punch list for any outstanding issues, but that room should have been fully restored.
Okay, yeah, because I think it was definitely exterior unpainted, just very well put together, just a couple of the punch list details. And from a positive perspective, I have to say, the team over there, DPW staff-wise, they deserve a ton of kudos. So I just need to say that out loud. They are incredible, have always been incredible, and what they did during the summer and what they continue to do, I just wanted to remark on that as well. So
I will share that with them. Thank you.
Fabulous team.
And Mary Kate had to go.
Yep.
I think we could all see why. But I know she would want to reiterate that, and I know she has to you, but publicly I feel compelled to say
Agreed.
to our viewing public
Yep.
that on behalf of Mary Kate and her team, you all have done a phenomenal job. So please share that.
I will certainly. And I was tempted to bring with me tonight. I mean, this was just one project that was completed over the summer. We obviously had a lot of work that was taking place at all three schools over the summer, in addition to our normal summer work. So
I think we're just interested because it's the most expensive one.
Well, and I think we can all appreciate, particularly with older buildings, or anytime you open something up, you may be surprised at what is there and what you thought was there. And what seemed to work may not work for what you're wanting to do. And I think we probably each have experienced that in our own personal lives, and have probably the same angst that you had with this particular project. From my perspective, and I think from the committee's perspective, we're glad to see that we're getting to finality with this, hopefully. And I think it's been long overdue, and I'm glad to see that the town has funded these projects, and look forward to them being completed for the other two schools.
So just, I guess my final words. So we will, as I mentioned, be receiving the feasibility study with some rough estimates on what those costs are. Based on this project, as I said, the Casey Coombs was the simplest. I am expecting that our existing funding may not be sufficient to complete both projects that are remaining. I know in prior conversations, the middle high school, because of the second story at that school, was, I guess, the priority between the two. Not that all three wouldn't be done, but it may be that additional funding needs to be secured for completion of the Quashnet School.
Will that be known prior to the completion of the budget process for next year?
We will receive the preliminary numbers this Friday. I've already talked to the town manager to let him know I'll be putting a placeholder on the CIP for additional funding for the HVAC project. We also will be trying to leverage grants such as our Green Communities grant, which we've been very successful in the past in receiving grant through the state. And their focus really is to eliminate dependence on fossil fuel, which is one of the goals of what we're trying to do with the projects. So hopefully we would be successful in receiving some grants to help towards the cost of either one or both of the projects. And then my other, I guess, just a warning is the size of both of those two schools are much larger than Casey Coombs. Expecting work to be completed in what they call the summer slammer is probably not realistic. As you may recall, when we did the roof window EFIS project here at Coombs, we did extend into the school year and had a phased approach for accomplishing the project. So I think we would be looking at something similar for the middle high school and then the Quashnet school for the HVAC.
So just to clarify, has the town manager conveyed to you that he would be receptive to putting this on CIP for completion of the tasks that were approved by the voters?
He was non-committal.
Or is he not committed to completing the job? Because typically we would go back and ask for additional funding to complete a task that wasn't completed, correct?
So I will be submitting on CIP. It will not have a number value assigned to it, but I will be submitting the project for additional funding.
That would complete it based upon the original intention that was approved by the voters, correct?
Correct. It's still subject to CIP committee approval, town meeting approval, and
Right.
probably a ballot.
Right, but the voters approved the concept and the funding for that concept, right? Now we're going to ultimately have to, from what I'm hearing you say, go back to the voters and say, things have changed, different issues, etc., cost escalation, whatever, and it's going to cost X amount or more. Are they still willing to fund that to complete those projects?
That will be the question before the voters, yes.
That would be the question for the voters to decide, right?
If I will be placing it on capital,
Okay.
I can't commit beyond that, how
Okay.
it
No,
will be.
I didn't know if the town manager had conveyed to you any feelings in regard to that, because I know he's got 2 other building projects that he's looking to get on CIP and get approved by the town that are exponentially larger in cost.
Just kind of following up or dovetailing off of that, I know at one point there was consideration of bonding the project, like going out for bond for the projects, like is that still something?
The existing, a portion of the existing funding is a bond,
Okay.
yes.
And then with the phased portion of the work, would that impact your cost? Are you anticipating it impacting the cost if we end up doing a phased project? Would that affect it? And to Don's question, would that raise what we're asking, or is it too early to know, I guess, at this point?
I think it's too early to really say, but I don't think the projects can be accomplished without phasing. Again, to expect that they can be done in a 2-month window is not realistic.
I guess I'm just worrying about, what phasing it out,
think,
how much that's going to increase
sure.
percentage-wise the project.
I think that in some of the conversations we've had with the design team was what that phasing would look like. And I think certainly if you were phasing over multiple summers so that the contractor had to mobilize and demobilize a number of times, that would certainly add costs. But if we could come up with a phasing plan like we did for the window roof project here, where once they mobilize, they stay on site until the project is complete. I think that would have less of an impact.
And the feasibility study likely will present that phase proposal.
Correct.
Thank you.
When it goes out to bid, in the bid forms, does it say that they need to have that requirement? That you were saying we had 2 bids, but only one met the requirements?
So what it says is they have to be DCAM certified, and there is a value that, based on the estimate of what that certification is. So a contractor can't necessarily bid on a project if it exceeds what they're approved for. So with the Casey Coombs project, I believe our requirement is that they had to be DCAM certified for $1 million. The second bidder, who was not certified for that amount, so they were not able to. Their bid was not could not be accepted.
Okay. And Quashnet and the middle high school have not gone out for bid yet?
No, we don't even have a design at this point. We're looking at options, and then we'll be moving forward once a decision is made on which option.
Yeah, if you could just, I guess for the public, like, I mean, I have an understanding, like, it's feasibility study, choose the option, then go out to, like, then write your RFP. So, right, like, could you explain that, I guess, so
sure.
that everybody understands what the process is?
So we do have the design team on board. So feasibility study will be complete. The town will make a decision on which option to move forward for each school. So the design team will then move forward with the design plans and documents. So that would happen, from this fall through, we would hope to bid at least one of the projects in early spring. So you would have design plans through at least a 60% construction. And then, looking at starting the project, getting the contractor on board and starting the project in hopefully sometime in June.
Can you just remind me, what's the ultimate goal for the Quashnet and the high school projects?
So it's twofold. One is to improve air quality in the classrooms. I think in the reports that I had forwarded, most of the spaces did comply with the guidelines. There are a few that did not, but they might have been at the upper limit of the guidelines. So, certainly improving air quality, and then also providing cooling in spaces that do not currently have it. So there are some classrooms at the middle high school that already do have cooling. Those spaces were excluded from the project.
Is are both considerations equally weighted in your decision process?
No. I mean, yes, they're equally weighted in terms of those are our goals. So all of the options that we look at will satisfy both of those goals.
Should satisfy both of those?
Yes.
Okay, that's the answer I was looking for. Versus we're gonna improve the air quality by ducking all the interior air out and bring all the hot air in and not do anything in regard to addressing the fact that it's 90 degrees in a classroom. No. Okay, so the goal still is we're going to
correct.
Cool and improve the air quality.
Yes.
Both at Quashnet and at the middle high school.
Correct.
Okay.
And we're not expecting to, and I think we had this conversation with Ashley, but these contractors that we had that were at the school, these are not the same contractors we're bringing back to do the middle high school in Quashnet.
So we will, as once the Casey Coombs project is complete, we will evaluate them as required by DCAM and provide our feedback. They certainly could submit a bid under a filed sub-bid for plumbing services, unless they were disqualified for some reason. So we will submit an evaluation that goes to the state, and that affects their rating.
Do you, as the director, feel comfortable that these people that made the mistakes at Coombs are gonna be able to, that's the smallest school, that's the easiest school. Now we're moving to the middle high school and to Quashnet. Do you feel comfortable backing those people that messed the project up over there?
So that's not my decision. As I said, we will provide an evaluation that goes to the state. That evaluation impacts how they are certified by the state. If they meet the requirements to submit under a filed subbid, we can't disclude them. The general contractor with filed bids, the general contractor actually is the one that selects the filed subbids who they want to work with. Most of the time, they'll go with the low, just because they're trying to win the bid, obviously, which is the lowest qualified bid. But if they have a relationship with a contractor, then they might select them. But we can't.
Procurement laws come into
Yeah.
play,
Right.
basically,
Yeah,
like mass
Right.
procurement laws.
Yeah,
Right.
there's a public bid process.
Yes.
For us to say
Chapter
someone
30, I
was
think.
included or excluded outside of that
Right.
process would be problematic, so.
And I guess to speak to their performance, I think certainly, as discussed, their oversight of the project was probably not the best. Their time management was not the best. I don't know that we had any issue with their workmanship. It was really the general contract functions, which was not something that I believe they had much experience with.
Is this project under the auspices of the Planning and Construction Committee?
It is, except we do not have a functioning planning and construction committee at this time. We don't have sufficient membership.
We don't.
We do not.
I thought that was a designated committee.
It is, but we do not have volunteers who have stepped up to serve on the committee. Per charter, there are specific roles that have to be filled. I think there's a requirement for someone with an engineering background, someone with an architectural background,
Attorney, I think.
attorney, I think an at-large, and then a representative from the school committee.
So I'm hearing a bylaw or a charter amendment may be required for functioning
Right.
construction and planning.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, particularly may not help this project in the rearview mirror, but with all the things that you've got coming down the plate, I would be concerned that, from my perspective, the DPW backstopped this one, and we're extremely grateful that they have. I don't know if you can do that with 3 projects basically working simultaneously of the magnitude that we're talking about.
So again, that will be part of the conversation that we have once we have the feasibility study, to look at the funding, but also to look at the logistics of, do we really want to undertake 2 projects at the same time? We do have, activities that happen at the schools during the summer that we need to continue to accommodate, whether everything can be shifted to the Casey Coombs School. I'm not sure, but also looking at, again, we received 1 qualified bid. What's the likelihood that we would receive more for the larger projects and 2? And looking at, what their staffing requirements would be.
And it's not uncommon that the bids you're not getting lots of responses, right? This is something that's happening across the Cape, is my understanding.
Unfortunately, the Cape adds an additional challenge because all of the workforce is having to commute to Mashpee.
So how are the projects prioritized? Like, we've got three big, at least two that I know of, three big, huge projects that are gonna be starting. Like, how do we prioritize that?
So the conversation, I think, last year when we secured the funding was the buildings with the second story were the priority, just because in those shoulder seasons, heat rises, that those are the ones that,
Yeah, and just from a logistics
Yeah.
perspective, since I was at all the tables, it's a process, there's a very specific process through the town that happens with capital, and with the planning and construction when it is in existence. And it's not, we put it on 5 years out usually.
Right.
This got accelerated because we had ESSER funds that we had to put out and spend by September 30th of this year. But there's a lot to this that I feel like we could probably support anyone who wants more information in a different forum. I don't think Catherine's probably the person to answer all the logistical things like that, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I know you could, but it's certainly not what you're paid to do by the town.
And I know you have
And I don't know,
other items
Mr.
on
Chair,
your
that's
agenda.
kind of your call. I don't mean to.
yeah.
No, ultimately, the big decision in regard to prioritization will come from the recommendation from the town manager as part of the CIP. So I think that's a subsequent conversation we need to have. So, all right, any other questions? I know she's been working all day.
Thank you
and
for all the
probably
information.
overwhelmed, so thank you.
Appreciate it.
Of course, happy to.
Hi, Catherine.
Have a
Bye,
good night.
Kevin, thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right. Do we have a representative? Okay. So move
I believe
on.
we got an email.
Did you get? Yeah, okay. Next item is the Falcon Discovery Camp Share Out. If you would please come up, introduce yourselves.
So I'll introduce them as just
Oh,
the
sure.
director. So Adrena O'Brien is one of our first grade teachers.
So that they can hear.
You have to use a microphone in order for the TV public, the grand public to watch. So Adrena O'Brien, this is her first year running our Falcon Discovery Camp, but she has been a Mashpee school teacher in here for 5, is this year 5 for you?
It's 2019.
Okay, I can't do the math, it's
Neither
too
can I.
late. But so Adrena stepped in this year as the director, and so she'll take it from here. But since Mrs. O'Brien isn't here, I wanted to make sure I introduced the
Thank
other
you.
Mrs. O'Brien.
Yep.
And yes, the names are not by mistake.
And yes,
Thank
it's 5
you.
years.
And I want to introduce my friend Tess. I had her in kindergarten, and she volunteered to come tonight. Due to soccer and after-school sports, she was the one that could come today, so I'm very, very thankful that she can come. So let's get started. A little bit about me. This was my first year being the director. I've been a camp employee since 2019, and I teach first grade at Casey Coop School. This was our flyer that went out to parents. It said a little bit about the camp. It said the sessions that were offered. This year we had arts and crafts, gardening, cultural bridge games, video creating, digital art and animation, painting, fused beads art, Legos, ST Math and Lexia, basketball, open gym, kickball, yoga and friendship bracelet making, adventures in action, recycled art creations, and science experiments. And students were told that they were able to sign up for 2 sessions. So they picked their 2 favorites that they could sign up for. And then the weeks that were available, transportation and snack were provided daily as well. And parents used the QR code to sign up, which went to me. And I gave them their acceptance letter almost in April so that they were aware and they could plan their summer accordingly. The teachers who instructed clubs were Liz Wilbur, Inessa Mahoney, Crystal Dudley, Jordan Resendez, Michelle Bird, Tricia Dempsey, and Christine Frazier. And our paraprofessionals who supported us were Alex Skoll and Danielle Gomes. And there was a total of 119 students that attended. So a day in the life of a camper, we arrived at 8:15 a.m. and again, transportation was provided. From 8:15 to 10:30 was our first choice club session. From 10:30 to 10:50, we had snack, which, as I mentioned, is provided. And from 10:50 to 12:30, we had our second choice session, and dismissal was at 12:30. And this schedule remained the same for all 4 weeks. Here's some pictures. We have our campers in action. We had slime making, we had painting, we had Lexia. We had gardening, which was really cool this year. All the food that was grown got donated, which was awesome. Painting club. We had digital art and animation. We had fuse beads. And we had cultural bridge games, which was new this year, and it was very popular. And more fuse beads and yoga. So I did a little Q&A before the camp ended, and when asked, what activities did you do during digital arts? It was stated that we made posters that were printed, and I put mine on my wall, she said. We also used iPads to make All About Me slideshows that we shared with the class. Another question was, what clubs were you involved in? And they were involved in basketball, recycled arts, fuse beads, and Legos. What was your favorite and why? And they answered using the basketball courts because it made me feel like a big kid. And I loved playing with Coach, which I thought was so cute. Another question was, what was something you remember about Falcon Camp? And they said seeing my friends during the summer, not just at school, which is why I like Falcon Camp too. A last one, we have, you have been coming to Camp Falcon since the 1st grade. What makes you keep coming back? And she answered, I love seeing my friends. I did theater one year and loved it so much. I joined to play at school, the teachers, and the snacks. And before we get to questions and comments, I have my friend Tessa. And her questions are, how many years have you been coming to camp?
Give her
Give her the mic.
3.
Give her the
Oh, sorry. Well, you want to come over
We'll
here?
give you each one.
No, it's all right. It's all right. So, how many years have you been coming to camp?
3.
Well, thank you. What is your favorite memory at camp?
Eating snack and playing with my friends outside.
What has your favorite club been at camp and why?
Digital art, because we got to print posters on a computer and we could make some in keychains and we could frame some.
And would you come back again next year?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
So can you just remind me what grades were eligible for this?
Yes, it's kindergarten to going into 7th grade.
So K through 6.
Yes.
I have a comment and a question. Having a little who went to camp, you guys were incredible yet again. So thank you for what you do. And Tess, I know you're reading, but what camp activities would you like to see in the future?
Yeah, come on. So what other clubs would you like to see at camp?
A chess club. Maybe like, yeah, soccer club. Book club.
They have ideas too.
Awesome. Thank you, Tess, and thank you for coming and presenting tonight.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question, actually. So the teachers, they were like they all teach at the Coombs, or are some of these paras that are like teachers for that unit? Could you just like elaborate a little on that?
Yep, it's a mix.
It's a mix, okay. And I guess one last question, the 119 students enrolled, that's like, was that even across the grades that you mentioned, or did you see more in one grade versus another?
There's usually more of the younger kids that attend. But I mean, yeah, and that was consistent with last year. Last year we had 123, so we were very close. But it is, like Tessa, these kids usually come every year. But yeah, it's more so younger, but that's not to say that older kids didn't attend.
maybe next year we could see that spread of like year over year, if that's possible, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, could we do to improve the camp for next year?
Well, air conditioning. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
We're working on that.
Nothing. I love working there. It's fun. You know, our teachers get together and the kids get together, and it's just a relaxed environment, and we're still learning, but we're playing as we're learning, and it's just a good time. So I can't really say.
Okay, you wouldn't change anything.
I wouldn't change anything.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
No, I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for taking your
Thank
summer
you.
time off and giving it to our kids.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. O'Brien.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Tessa.
Thank you, Tessa.
Thank you, Mrs. Hoover.
All right. Next, we have representatives from the Mashpee Diversity and Inclusion Committee, the chair, Marie Stevenson. And we also have our liaison, or the Mashpee liaison to the Barnstable County Human Rights Advisory Committee, Marie Blackburn. Thank you. We appreciate both of you coming.
Welcome.
To meet with us tonight.
Yeah. Do you want me to start, or do you want to start?
I'll let you start.
Okay.
If
That sounds
really
good.
just kind of, if you would give us an overview of what each of you do and the respective groups.
Well, what I was going to say was, I had originally offered to come after you had a really difficult meeting. This is before you came up with the idea of the article. I just want to say that. So I had called Kathy when she was chair and said, hey, maybe I could come in, represent the committee to see what we can do to support the school committee within the community, because I feel like the school district, the schools get the burden of all the pain that's happening, but the community, they're coming from a community, so that's kind of our role, is to look at what's going on in the community itself. And at that time then, so I also invited Marie Blackburn, because we were looking at, okay, what are some things that are already in place that we could help you with. So we may be ahead of the game now, because now as we know, you then proposed this article and let our committee know that was going on. And so then you and I met with the select board, and we agreed that we would meet together and try to come up with, I don't know if it would be another article, I don't know where you're going with that, but and as I understand it, that's where we are right now in terms of what it is that you want to accomplish.
From my perspective, it would be helpful to know what your role is.
Well, you've got that. I mean, that was that's very clear, and I think that
It's not.
okay.
If he's asking you then, because I have no idea what you do.
Right.
I have no idea what your board consists of.
Yeah.
The only time that I've ever been introduced to anything that you
Yeah.
guys possibly do is Race Amity Day.
Right.
And I was introduced to that by the tribe, not by the diversity committee.
Mhm.
So I have no idea, as a resident of this town, what you do.
Yeah.
So if you could please share that with
Well,
us, that would be very helpful.
Sure. Well, the thing is that, and I received communication from Kathy Lewis and Brian, and my response was, most of the things that you mention in your particular proposal are things that we already do, and we are very readily available on the website for the town, clearly stated. We've been in operation for 8 years. It's clearly stated what our goals are, who's on the committee, and minutes are available, very extensive minutes are available every month.
So
So,
I think the real question
Yeah.
that Kelly is asking,
Yeah.
and really the question I asked to
Right.
start this was, can you give us the Cliff Note version? And for the public who
sure,
isn't looking on the internet to see what it is,
right.
what your committee is responsible for doing.
Well, you really have to go into, try to be as brief as possible, but the original committee was a No Place for Hate committee that was initiated in 2000, and was encouraged or supported by the Anti-Defamation League. And so it was called No Place for Hate, and it went on to a lot of different communities, okay? And so Mashpee bought into that. And they were required to provide 3 specific activities related to diversity, inclusion, equity, in order to still be so-called named as an Anti-Defamation League, based group. In 2008, it just seemed to go defunct. It lasted for about 8 years. At that time, ADL pulled out. I'm not sure exactly what year, but they, in other words, their tasks were completed. I think the idea was to set something up in the towns and then, go on to other projects. So that was the history. So then there's quite a few years where there was nothing, okay, going on in this area. Just to give you a little bit of let's see, 2016, I have to think where it was, about 2016, there were some issues some incidents that occurred in the town. There was a swastika that was painted on a car in New Seabury. There was an incident of, I don't know the specifics at Panera. So the town manager, Rodney Collins, asked for a committee to be initiated. Again, or to revisit the concept of a committee, and sent out for volunteers, and called for volunteers. And at that point, I volunteered, and there were 3 or 4 of us in the community that volunteered. And now I need to tell you, because this is my reaction when I see this. It took us well over a year to develop the concepts of what our role was, what it wasn't. So it took a good 1.5 years. At that time, in order to initiate it, we had to figure out how many members, who was going to be represented, et cetera, et cetera. And the select board is the group that ordered this to happen, all right? And I bring this up to you as an idea, like, when you say an article, but I also wondering why administratively, that the kinds of things that you're asking for might also be managed without, and that's something for you to think about, but that's where it happened. And at that time, they required, that, as you know, a member of, a representative from the school committee, appointed by the school committee, should be on that committee. A member of the tribe should be on that committee, and somebody who had been in the original committee in 2000. Right, so that was our kind of our core group, plus whoever the volunteers that we had at the time that came in, and we were supported at that time. We got together with Kim Landry, with Carol Sherman, the select board, from the select board, and Lynn, the director of I get an aging moment here, but the director of the elder services. So they were great support to us, And so we really struggled with that. We didn't know whether it should be an elected position or it should be a volunteer position. So there was just a lot of going on, and we even started into bylaws and all kinds of things. And then Rodney came in and said, look, let's just make this a volunteer committee. Then we
like
evolved,
an advisory committee.
Pardon me?
Like an advisory committee?
Well, just a committee that was going to, develop a program in this regard, and so that's where we. I didn't bring the all of the our purpose but
And
it's readily
I don't
available.
mean to interrupt you and
Yeah.
stop you from what you're saying,
Yeah,
but none of what you just said
yeah.
answered our question.
Oh, I understand, but I think it's important to give you the history and to understand how difficult, what the time frame was. So we now have.
But that has nothing.
Yeah, I know. So we developed we developed a committee with 9 members plus advisors as well, including students, all right? So from then on, we developed, as much as we could, we developed a pamphlet that went out, that was posted all over in the community, in the town hall. Since then, and it pictured, and it was Connect With Us. And what it did was it included all the different organizations that are available in the school, not in the community rather, all the different agencies, Girl Scout, Boy Scouts, clubs, everything that you can imagine with contact information. And that is in the process right now. We're revisiting that and we're redoing it because now we need to update it. So that's going to be one of our big projects this year, to put that out again. I want to say that Patty DeBoer at that time was very helpful because she helped with the printing, and we had a committee to do that.
Yeah. Kathy has a question.
I just want to paraphrase, I think,
Yeah.
and making sure that I understand and my fellow committee
Yeah.
members understand before
Yeah.
things get a little too,
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know. Your committee's purpose is to connect the community.
Right.
And show the diversity that is within our community. And
Right.
ensure that people know what resources are out there, and that is the
Exactly.
purpose.
Yes.
Are there any additional purposes?
Like welcoming, like a welcoming
Yes,
thing.
and so like
Yeah.
is there anything else that the committee
Well,
does?
then, yes, so then you mentioned Race Amity Day. That actually came from somebody in from the community that moved into town and said, don't you have a Race Amity Day, and so now we're into our 4th year. We just had our 4th
So
Amity
it's
Day.
to connect and promote the diversity
Yes.
within town. That is the
Exactly.
main purpose
Yep.
and goal of the
We
committee.
do a lot with the tribe, as Brian knows, and so we have a lot of involvement. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to do that. And then the other really big project was the Who We Are project, which is because we've had this close affiliation with the schools from day one. And it was actually us. It was actually through Marie, who did this program called Conversations That Matter, and we came across an author from Concord, New Hampshire, who had had done a couple of books on immigrants in their community in New Hampshire. Story, photograph. That became one of our biggest projects, and it's important to say that we worked with the school. F.E. Purdy and I wrote the grants together because it needed funding, and we brought this author in as a consultant, and that's how it all started.
So the 2 buckets then again are
Those are the
kind of
biggies.
promoting diversity, but also connecting the community,
And also
then
making people aware, having people aware.
and the awareness,
Yeah.
raising the awareness, and then the
Yeah.
Barnstable County Human Rights Advisory Committee
Yeah.
is kind of like a broader.
Well, that's,
Can I
Yeah.
have a moment? Hi, I'm
Answer
Marie.
that basic question.
Yeah,
too.
I'm Marie Younger Blackburn. I'm going to be a little more succinct and a little more clear. I'm not on that committee at all. I was invited here by Marie, and I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself. I'm a parent at my son Chase. Blackburn is at Mashpee High School. I see you're nodding your head, so you know Chase. And we've been in this community for many years. I was the chair of Mashpee Housing Authority as well as the chair of the Mashpee Human Service Committee when it first came to town. So I'm here in the capacity of a liaison to the Barnstable County Human Rights Commission. And I just wanted to make my presence known to you. I'm newly appointed, and my role is to just act as a liaison. If you need a resource to the Barnstable County Human Rights Advisory Commission, which is a group of 9 people with 2 alternates, and I'm just going to read the mission statement of the Barnstable Human Rights Advisory Commission. It's to promote equal opportunity for all persons of Barnstable County, regardless of race, color, religion, creed, national origin, gender, age, ancestry, sexual or affectional preference, marital, family, and military status, source of income, neighborhood, or disability, where unlawful discrimination exists in housing, employment, education, public accommodation, town or county services, insurance, banking, credit, and healthcare. So if you have people in the community, in your school system, if you have problems and you need some resources, you can reach out to me and I'll leave my contact information. I can make a referral to the Barnstable Human Rights Committee, which has much more resources and they're decision makers. I am not. And they can help you find the proper agency you may need or whatever resources you may need to help with your problem. So I just want to make my presence known, let you know I'm here if you need me. And I'll leave some of these flyers and they tell you exactly what we do and who we are. And there are 15 liaisons, one in every town on Cape Cod.
I would add to that, that's another thing that we do is that through the commission, they have the Human Rights Academy where all the high schools teams come in. We accompany the team, the Human Rights Club students that go. So we're very affiliated also with the Human Rights Commission and the Human Rights Academy. The listing that Marie gave you is very much similar to the listing that we have. And I wanted to just say that we did not choose to use the No Place to Hate. We wanted the Mashpee Inclusion and Diversity Committee without the word hate in it. And we have since added to our title, our purpose is to add the term belonging, because inclusion, diversity, we also want people to feel like they belong to the community.
So your committee is almost like more localized version of the human rights.
Yeah, and the other important thing that was developed was that we were told we could not be an adjudicatory function. So, and that's important, because the first thing we did was we received, a complaint from somebody, and we said, well, wait a minute, that in terms of what is not our role, but our role would be, here we go, would be to find the resources to help the person find the resources, refer them to somebody like Marie or whatever was available to them. And, Marie said a word, authority, and I see some things in here that I can relate to in your proposal, and that's part of the issue, I think, for us. There's two really big issues, and one is we don't have authority, right? We don't, if you want to combine authority with power, we don't have a lot of opportunity to, a lot of, maybe, I don't know the word is support, but there's only so much we can do. And the other thing is funding. Anytime we want to do something, we have to go out and find the money. And, so we're not supported in the budget, which I think is also very important. And we are now getting a limited amount of money through the Human Services Department, okay? And that's to help us with, because, the reality is when you ask for grants, like we were supported at first by the the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and then we were refused the last two times because we've already done it, and so they want to share them. They're limited also, as is the Mashpee Cultural Committee as well. So these are issues in terms of trying to get things done. Yeah. The next project that we're looking at, other than to continue with the Who We Are, is still going on. A book is going to be, created this year, and I think we're up to over about 40 different countries that are represented in the school alone, which is amazing. All right, so it is really a long-term project and keeps the eyes on the diversity within the school. But another thing, I've been getting a lot of contact. I'm very fortunate, we are very fortunate, in that we have a full committee of 9, and we're one of the few committees, if any, that have no openings. In fact, we just had a resignation, and we have people already that want to be on it. Now, we have a group of people in the community that I've been communicating with. So the next plan is to start some kind of a community advisory group. I don't know how we're going to do this, but that's going to be to reach out even further to the community and respond to the people that are responding to us and want to have, which is really good, And we have somebody in the LGBTQ community, a gentleman who is a Muslim. We have a young man I'm hoping to get who's bound to a wheelchair. So we're trying to, that diversity is really important. A lot of people just focus on just race or ethnicity. It goes way beyond that.
If I may,
Yes.
a comment and a question. So first, Ms. Blackburn, I have to say, I'm a big fan of what the Human Rights Advisory Committee does.
Yeah.
Ms. Dominguez Santos is a friendly, and
Yes.
I really appreciate, the
Yes.
commitment of that. So thank you for what y'all do. I guess my question related to the Diversity Inclusion Committee is, what is the strategic plan for what you folks are hoping to do? Have you folks done a needs assessment within Mashpee, kind of better understood what the pain points are with regard to diversity and equity? And is that a part of your committee's future planning?
It certainly is a good idea. And I was very excited to hear, we now have Hope Hanscom, who's representing the school now. Thank you very much. And she told us that you're now going to have somebody that will do the data. And of course, that kind of data is really going to help us too, which is really, important for us working together.
Yeah, and I asked that because I think, as you had kind of said previously, what we see within the four walls of these schools is a microcosm of what is happening in the larger community.
Absolutely.
I think, I guess what I'm trying to attain, I think as a committee, what we've been trying to gather is, if there is a collaborative process here to create a community in Mashpee that really speaks to the desire to be inclusive and supportive and to challenge racism and all these other things, that's something that I think we as a committee can buy into and support and figure out how to mirror a lot of those charges within the school system, right, within reason. But it seems like that is currently an area that is lacking, is being able to have meaty and substantial conversations around what the major issues are and creating solutions or opportunities to try to reduce the number of incidents that we see in Mashpee as a community around these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, to reiterate, we're volunteers. All of us are volunteers.
We are too.
And so the thing is that, we might need some, certainly that's a great idea, and we'd be willing to, if we'd need some consulting to help us to do that.
I guess that's my question, is that something that the Human Rights Advisory Committee could assist
I think we could.
with, and help, help these committees within the towns do those needs assessments, better define what your strategic plan as a committee is, so that then you're able to work. Like, I think Brian and I, when we were talking about it, the idea of what we were trying to propose was that it was kind of the interconnectedness of the different committees and officials in town. And being able to create kind of like what you started with the template, and Brian, jump in at any point here, but it was kind of to take that template but expand upon it and really understand like what's going on in Mashpee and how do we work together, not just the school committee, but together to improve things. And in speaking with you and knowing what I do know about the Human Rights Advisory Committee through my what I do at work, and I know the Chatham liaison, so it's I look at it and there is overlap, but I guess it's how do we take those overlapping pieces and make sure that we're integrating them and not just stacking on each other. And I guess to Dan's point, if we have a more clear understanding, and to Kelly's point to an extent, if we have a very clear understanding of what your function is, which I feel I understand, maybe others are not as clear, but if there's a way to get that needs assessment to better define what your plan is, and then we can all work together to implement that within Mashpee, maybe that's what we need to be discussing instead of what was proposed. But I do still feel very strongly that we need community buy-in from the top down. And the town manager, police chief, fire chief, all of those people that are listed still need to be engaged on a regular basis.
I could certainly
So-
read into that. I did want to add something else because you mentioned Leslie Dominguez Santos. We did initiate a coalition that I now coordinate once a month with, and we have 35 different DEI-related groups, South Shore, and Leslie is obviously a member of that. And we do share information and try to support each other. And so there's probably resources, that we could use, even reaching out to those that are in all the different towns. There's different variations. We're one of the few that actually has a town committee, which I think is a plus, that's listed on, if you look on a website for all the towns on Cape Cod. I believe there is one in, I know there's one in Falmouth and Dennis, but I think that's it, but we were one of the first, and that's one of the things that we've done is like reach out to groups that wanted to start, like we helped the sandwich group and get initiated. We helped them. We coordinate with the other towns. So I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to bring that up too. Yeah. Question is, where are you going now? I mean, where do you want to go with this, I guess is the question.
I just want to say that I think that we're willing to work together,
Yeah.
and I think that we can really help each other because it
Yes,
seems
I
like
think
out of all the committees and things that we have in town, it seems like the school district has been doing a lot of work in diversity, equity, inclusion, and
Totally.
belonging, more than the select board, more than
Yes.
any other regulatory boards that we have
Yes.
here in town and want to support. And I think that that's important. And when we talk about, the inclusion part, I think that one of the assets that we have is the fact that we have a representative from the student population, and we established the student advisory committee there, but we also had talked about establishing a youth commission that we've kind of taken it on upon ourselves with Kathy and the school committee to say, well, this hasn't been established in the town yet, and maybe that's the group that we can go to and that we can work with, but unfortunately we don't have that group of young people, and I think that the young people are the ones that are the most impacted when it comes to the bullying and some of the stuff that is going on in the district, and I think that also, there's other things like the land acknowledgement and the land acknowledgement posters that are in all the schools here, in every classroom here, and it's like that kind of stuff can go further beyond than just us, making those, advocating for that at the select board level or other groups, and I think that,
I do want to clarify that we have always had students on our committee. We have two students. Every year we have two students, and we try to have it so that they're with us for 2 years. So I'll be looking for some sophomores now that will move in. So we do have student representation.
And also, Effie Purdy runs a human rights class in Human Rights Academy, so there are kids who are year after year doing some really important, meaningful work.
Deb Trayanis is now the advisor.
Yeah, I remember Miss Purdy. I served on the Human Rights Committee, and we started a lot of the Diversity Week and stuff like that, and cultural weeks and stuff like that. And it is great to see the work. I just think that I want to reiterate the fact that we can work together, and I think that one of the steps would be having a joint meeting with your entire board, or maybe it's with the commission as well, but just highlighting the fact that we're going to talk about the Mashpee Public Schools bullying prevention and intervention plan, and I think that that could be a way for us to collaborate and use that opportunity to provide those resources that we're talking about, because at the end of the day, I think that that's really what we need is the plans and the content and the resources that we need for our young people and for the community, and how do we kind of share that information, I think is where I'm coming from.
And then to go a step further with Brian's thought there, then the next step is to take it to the select board, take it to the town manager, take it to the next level and say, this is the work we're doing. Please help us implement this town-wide and make sure every committee is doing a land acknowledgement at the start of their meeting. Make sure every committee is aware.
Including the select board. And by
Especially the select board.
Brian, you probably know there's a big controversy going on right now in Plymouth about that.
Yes.
We've talked about that too in our coalition, so we're very aware of the land acknowledgement issue.
And that's a small thing, but it's a big thing, but it has big impact. And I guess that's the thing. It's taking the work that your committee is doing, the work that we're doing in the schools, and making sure that it's not just when there's an issue in town, everyone's like, oh, the school is not, they're failing our kids. It's the community needs to come together, and I guess that's the impetus.
Can I make one more comment? I just don't want to miss the opportunity to mention my son Chase's work. This was his senior project, and I think a real big opportunity was missed in this project. He created #IncludeMe, Band Together for Inclusion. It culminated with, this is the second edition of Cape Cod's first inclusive advertising guide, and there's some real clear, it's a guide that you'll find information about training and tips for how to build a structure of inclusion in this book, and you'll find businesses and organizations that align with our missions. It's not, #IncludeMe is not an ask, it's a statement of empowerment, and it's for everybody that says include me in education, include me in employment, include me in social recreation, and include me in community. So he's part of the Human Rights Academy Day in his work, and I really don't want the school system to miss this opportunity. It really helps in the disability space where we have kids who have diverse abilities in our school system, and bullying that could occur, lack of understanding, and just being fully inclusive in the school and in the community when you are a child or a young adult with diverse abilities. So I just wanted to let you know that's another resource for us. It's not an official town, but it did spring out of his senior project.
I'd like to speak too, because there really is a lot of really good things going on, particularly with volunteers that particularly coming from Southport and different communities, mostly retired people, I understand, but there are many, many resources within the community that we know of. I happen to come in myself, and I see that, and we were involved in the Diversity Day program, and a whole bunch of senior citizens from the Zumba class, we came in and did a presentation on the project on the issue of ageism. So we were also involved with that. So we're just kind of various different areas where we can encourage that communication. And I think there really is a lot going on. Maybe we need to do more marketing. Maybe we need to get the word out so that. And I did notice that, like we went to the senior center. They had a table set up, and I would. We were promoting, I think it was Race Amity Day, and I would say to the residents, the people there, do you know about the Mashpee inclusion? And no, didn't know about it. So I thought, okay, there you go.
That was kind of my point.
Yes,
like, the only reason I know that it exists is because of my contact with you.
Yes.
Because of I am in biracial marriage.
Right.
My child is black. Like, those are the reasons why I know about this stuff and why I research this stuff. But I don't think our community is aware. Mm-hmm. So when stuff goes down and stuff happens at the schools where it has to do with, DEIB, they're not knocking down your door. No. They're standing here calling for our heads.
Yes. Oh, no, I know.
So we're trying to figure out as a school committee, as a community, as a school community, what can we do to try to spearhead, this thing where, and again, it might be collaborating with you guys, to try to figure this out. Because it's not just the schools, but it seems to us like the responsibilities are put on our heads.
And that was my response totally, why I wanted to come in first place, because I totally see that.
Right.
And I don't think it's fair. It really isn't fair to you.
Can I just, one thing from our meeting last night, if it's okay that I speak on behalf of the MIDC that I am also a member of now, which is bad. Thank you to all of you for placing me on that committee. Is one of the things we talked about, and I feel like it just didn't get mentioned, and it's exactly what you're sort of hitting on, is a crisis response team. Mm-hmm. In Mashpee Public Schools, we have a crisis response manual that has all the different sort of everything you can think of, including tornadoes, which I used to think were not a thing we had to deal with, but they are. And so what we've talked about with the MIDC is collaborating with the school and the town agencies around a crisis response manual for when things happen in the community, who comes together, what are the structures? Because when things happen, all of our lids are flipped. Our frontal lobes are not working because we're all stressed, and it's all very heightened and emotional. But if you have this platform of this is what you do, if then, like we do in the schools, but the community, the town agencies are a part of that, that is where we can lead the way, I believe, so that it's not reactive, it's proactive.
Or isolating.
Right, so that, sorry to interrupt,
No,
but
glad you
that
did.
is something that I believe is what you were asking for, that
That's
did
what
come
I
up
saw.
last night.
I saw that in there, and I totally agree with it.
And that's one of those things. It's a town-wide problem. I mean, how many times,
We agree
how many
on that.
times has the building on 130
Yeah.
been, signs getting printed up there? And
Yeah.
people are mean, and they really are, and unfortunately, that's the world we live in. But as a community, we can be better. We can lead the charge of, hey,
Yeah.
this is Mashpee. This is where you belong. And let me tell you, Mrs. Blackburn, Chase is amazing, and I love that kid, and he spreads so much joy to the people around him. I met him for the first time 2 years ago, and he just had the biggest smile on his face, and he's a very warm, loving child. So amazing job. He does a great job, and he represents, you guys very well.
I wanted to bring up something I think is really important too. We have a very good relationship with the police department and police chief, by the way. He was one of the first people that came to talk with us, day one when we started. Obviously, he's been out ill, but back on track, thank heavens. And we now have, because of the state laws and everything, it's now dictated that they must have somebody on their force that is looking at civil rights. Now we have a new representative from the police department, Mike Moulis, and he just went through the training with the civil rights for the department. It's really important, and he gave us a whole presentation last night on what he learned. And here was something that was really key that I think it kind of relates to what you're saying. A lot of times there's frustration because something happens, like you mentioned, and then we don't know what was done about it, right? And so the example was that, and this is unusual, and that was brought up at our committee meeting last night, that the town manager came to us, which is very unusual, and said, we want you to know that there was this letter that was sent to the tax assessor that was saying, that if certain groups of people were not eliminated from this town, that they were not going to pay their taxes. Where this came from, we don't know. It's obviously out there in an email. Mm-hmm. But then the question then from one of our committee members looked at our new police guy, our representative, and said, we know, yes, he came to us, but we don't know what happened. We don't know how it was handled. Is there something going on? It's like checking, the cyber world.
But going one step back, it shouldn't be unusual for him to come to you guys with that.
Exactly.
And that's, I think, what we are trying to get to, yeah.
But when he did, and that was good, we appreciate that. It's the first time.
But it should be a normal reaction.
It should be normal.
Yeah.
But my point was that then we were able to turn to Mike, Officer Mike, and he said, can you find out for us? Will you try to get back to us and let us know? So we feel like something's being done. And I think that's pretty typical of what you're all hearing as well. So I thought that was really key. Yeah, last night.
Dan, do you have anything?
I guess my only final comment, well, first off, is gratitude for the two of you being here to obviously, talk through this and share, the work that you folks are doing. I think it always comes down, in my viewpoint, to a lot of these committees, regardless of what world you live in professionally or volunteer-wise, is the question of efficacy and what are the outcomes we're looking to strive to meet within our municipality is at the end of the day the main question that I think our constituents ask. Mm-hmm. And even what you shared about having a law enforcement presence on the committee, I love that, but then what is actually happening in reality, right? Because we know that some of those engagements may not be as person-centered as we would hope they would be, and they have a representative that's on the committee, right? So that's my long lead-in, and I'll just finish it up by saying, I think really what I would like to see is, again, is there a partnership opportunity between what y'all are doing and what the school committee is doing? How can we contribute to the work that is happening? And in situations where, again, microcosm of the world, something's happening within the school setting that very clearly has impacts, or the lead-in is what's happening in the community, and now that's playing out in our school system. Exactly. Our response is we can do what we can do within the four walls of our establishments, but we can't control what's happening outside of here, and what we don't have right now is a clear understanding of who has that charge. Yeah. And I think that's my personal struggle is trying to identify who is leading these? You folks are doing a lot of great work, but at the end of the day, what are the events, what's happening, who's leading this, what are the outcomes, what are we trying to reduce? What are we hoping to see from a data perspective? Because I think that's very telling, and at the end of the day, your comment about funding, it speaks volumes when you have data and things that you can present to funders to show we saw a reduction in this or whatever it may be. And I would say that I think as a committee, we're probably very well situated to be able to be a part of those conversations.
Kathy?
I just, again, want to thank both of you ladies for the work you're doing. It's not easy conversations you're having, and we appreciate the conversations because they need to be had to shine the light in those dark places. So thank you.
And I appreciate the fact that we have people on our committee that are, willing to work, but,
I think to Dan's point, though, too, I would like to see more support from the select board where you are an appointed committee. And maybe as a private citizen, I need to voice that a little bit stronger as well as a school committee member.
Well, yeah, I wanted to, can I address that just a little bit? Because you're totally right. One of the things is, and this is an example of that we're not communicating with each other. I'm not laying blame here, I'm just saying we haven't communicated in this committee. But that also relates to other committees like housing.
Yes.
If you look about who's
you impact every, you have a lens that should be shined through on every committee's work,
And one thing that Carol Sherman said to me as a result of this was maybe we should be getting a representative, I know it's another committee, but I think it's a good idea for these committees to communicate with each other and know, exactly like what we're doing, but it can expand to others.
Well, it's kind of on the select board to refer things to the other committees, in my opinion, so.
The other issue I have is like, I really want to challenge the select board on this, is this whole idea of the liaison, which sounds really, really good on paper, but, it doesn't exist, really. I mean, we make sure that whoever is our liaison, we get the minutes, but, and I'm not saying that they can handle that because they've got to deal with all those committees, but if that's not really working, or there isn't a process where even if our committee reports to the select board, we're not asked to do that, there's no two-way street here.
Is there a select board liaison on the committee?
Yes.
Who is it?
Well, right now, it used to be John Cotton, and right now it's David Weed. They assign different ones, And I'm not focusing just on them individually. I don't mean it that way. What I mean is in terms of the total, it looks good on paper, but is it really happening? So that's just one example of how we can be reporting. The select board doesn't. You said you don't know what we're doing. I'm not sure the select board does either, unless we tell them.
And that helps with the buy-in from the town, I guess, is the other point.
Yeah.
The more that you're able to get in front of them and say, this is the work we're doing, or this is the committee that we've worked with and provided advice to, the better your message gets. So it goes, but again, I'm very grateful for the work you ladies are doing, and I'm glad that you're bringing a voice to this and helping elevate it, and we will work with you to do what we can.
So the mechanics of all of this, because remember, I have a committee of 9 plus other, so we're really like just 12 or 13 of us. So to try to get this together, how we're going to do this, I don't know, maybe you have some suggestions. I think we might have to, if you want the whole committee, then that's.
I think what we'll do is we'll, as a committee, post some dates, and then you can talk to your members and see if any of those dates work. And we'll
So have like a work session kind of thing, separate from a regular meeting.
It would still have to be a joint meeting, I think. It would still have to be a joint meeting, I think.
It would be a joint meeting, but what I'm talking about is to come up with a date. We will come up with some dates that will work for our committee.
Okay.
Send that to you.
Beautiful.
You can talk to your committee members and see if any of those dates will work for the majority of those members.
Can I throw out one idea though? I mean, would you want it to, sometimes it's hard to get everybody in person. Would you entertain a Zoom meeting or no?
I, honestly, from my personal point of view, when you're on a Zoom, half the people aren't paying attention.
Okay.
They're really not. We do it for Cape Cod Collaborative, like all of the board members and stuff, we're all on a Zoom meeting. I can tell you 25% of them aren't really, I mean, they're doing other things. They're cooking dinner, they're checking the laundry, the dog's jumping on them. You know, not everybody can confine it. It's more beneficial if we're all in front of each other.
I know, I'm fine, just throwing out ideas.
I know it's tough,
Logistically, it is.
but-
It is hard.
And I get it.
Yeah.
So, sounds like the preference would be live, but.
Yeah,
we
no,
had to
I'm fine
accommodate
with that.
one or two,
Right,
we
yeah.
could do that. Brian, do you have some additional thoughts?
No, I think we should just keep this on our radar, and the fact that we appointed Assistant Superintendent Hanscom, I think that can kind of be how we get the dates and kind of, solidify the stuff to move forward as well.
Yeah, because there wasn't a giant appetite from the committee actually to have a joint meeting. I think the goal was the liaison piece to have, so I just want to put that out there. Those are people who are, their meetings are the first,
The second Tuesday of each month.
second Tuesday of the month.
Third
It may
Tuesday,
be
everything.
worthwhile, and they're at 5:00 at the town hall. It may be worthwhile to align your schedules if you can with the folks there. We're all busy, I get that, but I can just give you the feedback from the committee that I heard last night.
How are we supposed to work together?
No, then
if
please
they're-
don't, then I'm misspeaking, because Kelly, if you're gonna have that response, I don't want,
Well,
I
that's-
should not speak for the committee, so I
That's kind of what you
apologize.
just said. What you just said was that they're not enticed by us having a
It's not
joint meeting.
enticed,
Dr.
it's,
Hanscom, can we just start by, and sorry, I apologize to
No.
cut the cord here, but I think one thing that I would like to see is as you have meetings and you're our liaison, can we make sure that that gets on the agenda?
yes.
Right, because I'd love to have those
Because you
updates.
meet the Monday before our meeting, so it should probably be a standing agenda item for an update.
Tuesday.
Or Tuesday, I'm sorry, but it
Wednesday.
probably should be a standing agenda item.
Yeah, and I should clarify again that I was not speaking on behalf of that committee, and I shouldn't have acted like I was, Kelly, so I want to make sure that's clear. Marie is in charge of that
It's
committee.
not an unwillingness, but it's just like, how are we gonna, just as I said, the logistics of it is difficult.
And like any good compromise, there's give and take. So if our
Absolutely.
response is that we're not willing to do a Zoom, I think that
No,
that's
that's
also
fine.
unreasonable. So I think that I like
We'll try
Don's
to do it in
proposal of
person.
identifying some dates, figuring out what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And
I
if we
concur.
need to shake and adjust, I'd say we take it from there.
I will throw out that I know 2 of our members are traveling in October, so.
We would just need a quorum. I mean, as ideal it would be to have everybody, I think as long as we have a quorum of both, I
Yeah.
think that would satisfy both committees. So, ideally,
we
yes,
have
everyone,
a
but
quorum of
quorum
5.
would be
We have
ideal.
a quorum of 5 in our committee, so
We have a quorum of
that's
3,
a good
so-
goal. But and then if we can get some of our advisors, like our students or, the human resources, we have other people on the committee that.
Maybe get those
advise us.
liaisons.
Mhm.
And,
Aisha and
and maybe
Eamon are
we-
amazing.
And it's just, I don't think the whole meeting should be Zoom. I'm not saying like we have people that travel, Brian travels, I travel, everybody travels.
Sure.
If we needed 1 or 2 or 3 people to be coming in on
Okay.
a Zoom, I'm not
Right.
saying it's totally, we do it.
Okay.
It seems more productive when we're in person.
And then for place, it would be here, let's, just trying to clarify, you see it as being here, right?
I mean, we're able to control the space and.
Yeah.
Whereas if we went
We
to
don't.
town hall, you have to put it.
We get moved around, don't even go there, but we,
So
yeah,
much easier for us to,
yes,
schedule something here versus.
perfect.
Somewhere else. Worst
Yes.
case scenario.
Bigger
maybe
space.
Maybe the library and the meeting space.
Yeah.
We think out there. But we'll-
All right.
We'll figure out the logistics.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, the intent is for a
Yeah.
joint meeting,
Right.
more to come.
And our next meeting is October 14th. That's where we're meeting next. And if you want to send a representative at any time, please.
Marie, is that at town hall?
In the town hall, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. And we
5
welcome
p.m.
anybody to come to that as well.
okay.
Thank you, Ms. Stevenson.
Kelly, did you have any-
Nope, I'm good.
We totally missed you. You have thoughts on this conversation?
I am so tired. My brain is not wrapping itself around. I mean, I think the committee is a great idea. I hope that the students will benefit from it. But yeah, there's a lot of information that got thrown around, so my brain's like, what?
Well, Aisha and Eamon.
I do know I should name
They're the
them.
both parents.
They do not let their opinions go under the
They
table.
do not, and they are very good with us too, and they report back to us every time on what's going on in Human Rights Club, the Human Rights Academy, what is going on in the school. They're wonderful.
So I think this conversation is long overdue. Thank you for coming.
Good, I'm happy.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it, and look forward to having
Wonderful.
further discussions on this.
Yeah, and and some good suggestions.
Thank you.
No, thank you guys.
Thank you,
Appreciate it
ladies.
so much.
Should I leave these here or bring them?
Oh, I can,
Okay.
So there's, the sheets on what we do. I don't know if I brought enough, but, and then we can make copies of it. Share, Jason. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, have a good night.
Thank you, ladies.
No, we're gonna make copies.
Or Eva's next.
What's going on down there? Sidebarring?
Keeping it rolling. Yeah, keep them on task.
Okay. Student advisory rep. Back on the agenda.
Yep. So I don't really have anything to do or to say because honestly, I had looked at the agenda when Ms. Vinitsky first sent it to me, and then the other day I looked at it, I was like, oh, I'm on there. Didn't know that. So I mean, it's only been 2 weeks into school. We finished our 14th week today, I think. So yeah, everything's just kind of been going. Sports have started. I know there's a football game for the boys next Friday night. I haven't been to a ton of the sports events, but I have been to a couple of the cross-country meets, which are always so much fun. And not being sarcastic, it sounds sarcastic. Yeah, but clubs are starting up, all different stuff. I think that the high school is really, there's more of a positive vibe to it. I know I'm using, young kid language. But I think the teachers and administration and kids, from what I've seen, are getting along a lot more, which I think is a really positive thing. We had a tough year last year, but I'm really hoping that we're turning a corner and starting to go in a good direction. So.
Any word on getting more student advisory reps? Have you started putting the word out? I know you have a new faculty advisor this year, is that correct?
So that's a complicated issue that I'm currently dealing with. So yes, we do have a new advisor this year, but I don't think he was really told.
Who is the advisor?
Mr. Looney.
Okay.
We're trying to figure out because he's doing, his title is advisor of the school committee.
Yes, so that's not
the student council, not the student advisory
so we need a separate advisor.
But it's hard because I'm president of both, and the deal was that I'm president of the school committee because I'm president of the student advisory committee. So we're trying to
which also,
figure some stuff out. It's in the process of getting talked about.
Okay.
You had your first meeting today.
Yes, we had our first meeting today for student council, so we're trying to, I'm trying to wrap my head around.
Does he need an understanding, has he been informed of the student advisory committee and the difference between and
Mr. Brody's gonna go talk to him and just figure that out.
Because they are very separate entities.
They're separate, but we ran them at the same time, so it's a very confusing process.
But we're trying to make sure we're untangling that
but
this
right
year.
now I'm like, okay, I need to figure out a way to get the kids. I know Marielle and Paige are both still interested in doing it.
So we need at least two more.
I have some 2 or 3 people who have expressed interest in joining the committee. So yeah, I'm definitely trying to recruit more.
The underclassmen?
Yes, a 9th grader and a 10th grader, and then I can't remember. There's one other.
Okay. I believe we have a joint meeting coming up here in October, correct?
Yes.
So we'll need to get together to think about a agenda. So if you would share with me your thoughts, and I will share with you mine. Okay.
And if there's anything we can do to support getting the students to understand, now that we are a year in of our kind of makeshift version of it, I'd like us to get more in compliance with what the law dictates the committee should be. So if you need help with that.
I have to go review the law that I have.
So one question, Kathy, I had on that was, it's my understanding that these people who really are volunteering for their, once they're on that advisory committee, they're on that advisory committee until they graduate. Is that
That's my
correct?
understanding, but the chair is only on for a year. So every year they have to have the election for the chair. And then MASC, we are going, Division 7, our division is actually going to be co-hosting with Division 3, I think, a Zoom specifically about creating and developing your student advisory committee. I want to say it's October 25th. So there's one coming up that is going to be co-sponsored, like I said, by both of those two divisions to discuss. So it might be beneficial for, if you're interested in signing up for it, when the sign up goes out from MASC to join that. But it's basically, yes, they're appointed, once they get elected by the student body, they all have to be elected by the student body to the committee, but then the committee itself has to elect its chair, who comes to our meetings
Right.
for a year.
Election of the chair is not my
Okay.
concern. My concern is that you put a freshman on and they're representing, they're basically there until they graduate. And so you potentially don't get the same amount of diversity.
It's not
and
necessarily
opportunity.
outlined. Other schools have done it. I mean, when I asked that question, because I remember you asked that question. So at Summer
Right.
Institute, I asked Stacy Rizzo, who kind of really got the ball rolling for MASC and student advisory committees. And she said in her schools they have been, but it's only the chair that's outlined in the law. So really there's wiggle room. If we wanted to make it, it's not clear enough in the law. So you're able to have it, to your point of diversity, if you wanted to set term limits, they could set term limits and have it be a 2-year thing or a 1-year thing, and every year have an election process. Do I think there's a benefit to someone being on there for more than 1 year? Yes. I don't think 1 year is enough for a student to fully grasp what they do in the committee, but that's my opinion. But I mean, we're a committee of 5, so if, we want to advise them to set limits and talk to their staff faculty advisor, and help them help the student advisory committee craft that rule.
All right, well, that's potentially a discussion then for further consideration down the road. Right now, your issue is finding representatives.
But also getting the staff advisor on board with the whole thing as well.
I have talked to Mr. Brody the past 2 days for an extensive amount of time, and then I've also been a little bit in contact with Andrew, and he said if I ever need any help with the law or just going over.
I'm happy to reach out to Mr. Looney too, if that's okay with the superintendent, to give him the handbook and explain, the resources available for your group, because there are extensive resources.
So Kathy, so I'll understand this correctly. I want to make sure. So the staff so Mr. Looney can't do both. He can't.
I mean, he can, but they shouldn't be combined. Like, it shouldn't be.
It's two different.
It's two different things. It should not be the same group with a subset. They're two distinctive, very different groups.
All right.
It's not like one is mandated by Mass General Law. The other is an optional thing that the schools decided they would like to do for student representation within the school itself.
That's what I thought.
So
I'm like, okay, wait a minute.
You got two different animals really going on here.
Okay.
One is like setting up school dances and Spirit Week, and the other one is really trying to take this agenda and bringing it to the students and saying, hey guys, we're going to be talking about the bullying and we're going to be talking about the superintendent search timeline, and taking this to the student body and saying, what do you need us as your student reps to the school committee to say to the school committee and be your voice? That's the main difference between the advisory committee and a student council.
Okay.
At least in my opinion.
And I'm hoping, I was brought up with the idea of going to work with the student council of the Quashnet school at the same time to see what they have to say.
Well,
because
yes.
I think they would be really beneficial for the student advisory committee, because, okay, so how do you want, KCC, they're a little too young, they're just like, we want more recess.
You say that, but at NSBA 2 years ago, there was a student advisory rep panel, and there was a school district in Maryland that did K through 12. And they had their student advisory reps go K to 12 to get input from the kids on different things. So we're in our baby steps right now. We don't need to think that big, but I'm saying down the line, it could potentially be school.
Great discussion topic for when we meet on a joint session, okay?
Fine.
Let's move, see if we can move on from here.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Eve for showing up to the policy subcommittee.
Yes.
Because I know she didn't mention that in her report, and she does do a lot outside of, extracurricular activities, but thanks Eve for showing up as well.
Thank you.
Appreciate that shout out for her, thank you. All right, let's move on to item number 10, superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. So first I'll talk about the opening of the school year, and as I mentioned to the committee via email, this is the smoothest opening I've experienced in my 8 years as being a school superintendent. I want to extend my thanks to the staff and administration for all their hard work to make that happen. One thing that was very obvious is the warmth, welcoming, and care that this faculty and staff provide towards their students, and I think that is a key thing that made the opening so smooth. This past Thursday, I had the opportunity to attend the open house at the Coombs School, and I already sent my congratulations to the faculty administration there for a job well done. It was an incredible event. Looking forward to being at the high school tomorrow. Couple things that have come up that we have changed around communication. And I'm going to codify this in the next newsletter, or maybe a special newsletter coming up. But looking at communication that is concise and strategic and organized, specifically having district communication come from the district office about the district and not everything else, and school communication coming from the schools. So district communication, looking at a monthly newsletter, and also tomorrow we will be recording our first podcast. Dr. Hanscom is so excited about that opportunity. I had to push her down to make sure she didn't jump down when we did that, but we're going to be discussing in depth multiple tiered system of support and publishing that. And then I've had a new hobby of getting back to my audio days. We'll talk about that some other time. Right? We'll talk about that some other time. But that will be coming out, and so look for that. That will be published looking at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube as well. YouTube has the ability to do translations, which is important. One thing that I have learned, and it's been humbling, is that I don't have enough of a YouTube rep to have all the things. We're going to have to manually upload it to YouTube until I become worthy enough to do it automatically. We'll see how long that takes.
I didn't even know it became an automatic. I'm so not cool that I didn't know that was a thing.
You hang around with me, Dr. Hanscom. It's gonna rub off eventually. The other thing that we are scheduling is I'm going to be doing residencies in each of the schools. What that basically is basically spending the entire day open and available to staff and students. Next week on Wednesday and Thursday, I'll be at the high school. The following week on Wednesday, I will be at Quash, and on Thursday, I'll be at the Coombs. I will schedule a second day in those schools as well, but that is kind of an informal way for me to get the feel of the schools, visit with staff and students as well. I already have my rolling desk. They assembled that at the high school for me, but I do have a place that if I have to go take a phone call, I can do that as well.
Are you going to be a penguin?
Am I? We're not talking about Gigi yet. That's in the spring. All right. So the other thing that is probably going to come out tomorrow is that the family barbecue for Quash and Coombs is probably going to get changed to the week after. We'll make that official. We're talking about rain on Friday. Barbecues are fun, but not so much in the rain. So we're going to move that.
Email.
Yeah. So look for that. The one thing I will mention is that we are struggling with School Status Connect right now with the newsletters. For some reason, when you press to view it in a browser or to translate, it goes to the Spaceman error page. We're working with them. I would encourage everyone to try to view the communications on the app. That does not seem to have that problem. Chairman Myers pointed that out to me last week. I thought it was just me. Again, another humbling experience. I have now discovered that it's not just me and my magnetic personality throwing off all the electronics. The one thing I will also mention about communication is that each week on Wednesdays, What's Happening Wednesdays with our super editor, Mrs. Vadinsky over there, is coming out, and that will be all the flyers for the entire district. And again, the idea is that parents will know, if you want to know what's happening and what flyers are coming out, they come out Wednesday, the links will be there, the information will be there, the text will be there, so people can get it in different languages. And again, trying to be strategic, coordinated with our communication.
The first one of those went out, right? Those
Two.
tests?
Two of them
Yeah.
went out.
I have to say, they look phenomenal, so thank you. We can actually see
I
what's
love it.
going on, what's available, like,
So,
The sports schedules that you're sending out, like the communication that we have to our community, this school year is I'm astonished. So
Much more
whoever it is,
digestible.
whether it's Miss Sherry, whether it's Dave, whether it's Hope, whether it's the kid, whether it's whoever it is, a collaborative team effort. I've had parents say to me, "Oh my God, we have football games here on Fridays," or we have like a co-op. Like they don't understand the whole sporting or the clubs or any of that type of stuff.
Yep.
Once they get put into that, but the information that you guys are sending out, believe me, it's definitely reaching. Like Kathy said, it's amazing.
Yep.
Wow.
can I request, at least selfishly for myself, but also I think for the other school committee members, that those communications that are going out, whether it's from principals or the superintendent or from Ms. Sherry, are also sent to the school committee members, because I don't receive anything for Casey Coombs anymore and haven't for a long time. I'm assuming it's still there.
You don't subscribe?
Well,
I subscribed.
I didn't subscribe. They didn't send me one to subscribe to?
No, I meant before.
Oh,
Like,
before,
the
no.
changes this year are a little different,
Yeah.
but before I was
So,
a subscribing member to the Falcon Eye and the
Right?
Falcon
Washington
could just
blog.
include the school committee on all of those, so that in our infinite spare time, we can browse through them.
They're cool to look at.
Yeah, so I did mention that to Sean Maroney, the end of last week. We are actually meeting tomorrow on several things, and I will definitely bring that back up. So it's just simply adding you to those groups.
Yeah.
Of course, it does mean you get all parent communication, not just from
Yeah.
those schools, but, yeah.
That's fine.
All right. So then- Yeah. And then moving on to enrollment, on page 17, you have the enrollment report. This year, currently, we are at 1,396 students. That is about 47 less than what we ended June with last year. I'm not quite sure what the pattern here is and whether that continues to grow throughout the year, or at least oftentimes in most communities you'll see that number keep bumping up until the first part of October. I don't know if that has historically happened here as well. But you can see all those numbers. Below that, you have homeschool numbers, and again, those are similar from last year. Cape Cod Tech and Sturgis are there as well, and all sorts of other data. So I don't know if there's any questions about enrollment, but
So just a question, just to make sure I understand correctly. But the DESI numbers that are reported below do include school choice, right? And so are you saying?
yeah. So that number 1396 is the total in. Out of that 1396, 101 are school choice.
Oh, it doesn't include, it does
Okay.
already. Sheesh.
And
Yeah.
just to be fair, I was checking tonight. I mean, I never, ever, ever multitask at these meetings. You know that. That is not my game. But I did verify, I wanted to make sure it was reading that way. And the numbers are actually, we're probably at 1404 based on what I counted, because that is September 12th and we're at September 18th. So, but
went up.
it has, the numbers actually are a little higher, not like astronomically, but it's a moving target. And every single day we receive notifications from all three buildings of withdrawals, of with ads and so forth. But we did have a lot of ninth graders leave this year,
rising ninth graders.
current ninth graders, going from 8th to
Yes.
9th.
So,
Right.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
number was much higher going out than has historically been.
In terms of school choice seats, did we fill all the school choice seats that we had available?
We have one in 5th grade, one in 6th grade, and I think there's one other level, which is one in first, one in 5th, and one in 6th.
And do we know how many we turned down or did not make it in for any of the grades that were filled? You don't have to answer that tonight, you can get that to me later. But just out of curiosity for next year's discussion, if we're seeing decreasing enrollment, maybe we need to look at those grades that were filled and we turn people away and up those numbers, just a thought.
Yep, good point. All right, I'm going to skip over to pages 42 and 43, just to let you guys exercise your fingers. I was asked to provide demographic information. The first page, 42, is looking at employee demographics. You can see there really is not much difference from last year to this year. We do use self-reporting for that. So sometimes people choose not to report, but you can see the numbers are pretty stable from what they were last year. 43 is student demographics, and that is from DESE. And you can see it's split up into elementary and secondary, and then total population in the lower right-hand corner, and then percentages looking at last year from the DESE report. Obviously, if you look at the percentages of different ethnic groups, you can see that we still have some work to do to have our staff represent our student population, and that's a combination of both available teachers in the pool and also living on the Cape. So I don't know if there's any questions on that, Data. Okay, and then for staffing changes, I'm back to page 18. So we have hired a speech pathologist, Mary Beth Barnhart, paraprofessional at the high school, Rachel McEnroe, who I believe is a Mashpee graduate. Met with her. Administrative assistant, Nicole Drew, and our part-time diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging data analyst started last week, Mary Ware. We have 2 openings, actually probably 3 openings right now, because we elevated someone who's a para into a long-term sub position that just opened up, but we're looking for an English language learner teacher or multi-language learner teacher, long-term sub at the middle high school. We are still in the process of hiring the Indian Education Grant Coordinator, but I suspect that I will have that completed, if not tomorrow, by Friday. And then we did have 1 long-term sub opening at the middle high school because that person's going to do a long-term sub in October at the Quashnet School. So,
So the para that you moved up, where were they? What school were they at?
they were at the middle high school. He's going to go to the Quashnet in October. Right.
We have our team takes the year there they have who's working to become a teacher as well, for that employee have an opportunity for 6 weeks, and then we'll go back on that.
Yep.
So,
Can you share the person?
I think it's official.
Yep.
Yeah, Jordan was that. So we're excited to give Jordan the opportunity to become a teacher.
Yep.
That was something that we fill up the current one, 6 weeks, and we'll go back.
Yeah, I actually saw Jordan today. He was really excited. He's kind of vacillating between 2 different, PE being one, and I can't remember what the other one was.
That could be the counselor. Or
Yeah, counselor or PE teacher. So actually doing it for about 6 weeks or so, he thought would really be a good thing for him.
He'll figure out if that's what he wants to do.
Exactly. So it's a great opportunity for us and a good opportunity for him. And
He
again,
seemed to have a really great season with the basketball team, and I've heard really great things about him as
Yeah.
a coach, so I'm happy to hear that.
yeah, well, and again, back to that push to kind of grow our own, being flexible like that and giving people opportunity experiences is good for the district.
Was that offered to anybody else, or was it just offered to him?
We posted it.
You did, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, and then put on my newly formed athletic director hat and go to page 19 and look at the summary of the athletic program. There you have each sport, the coaches, the participants, and what grades they're from, and the numbers. Short little home game, so you can put those on your calendars. On the back side, page 20 is the JV and middle school sports teams, numbers and dates.
As you guys can see, if you look at the JV side of this, we're not gonna have varsity pretty soon if we don't get more kids to play sports, because the JV levels are very low. The high school levels are high, the middle school levels are high, but those 9, 10, 11,
Yep.
they're, and I don't know if that had to do with COVID and the kids staying home. But athletics is a very, I believe, I come from an athletic family. I played sports as a kid. All my brothers played sports. It's a place for belonging for some kids. And I don't know how do we get more kids to want to, play?
The same way we want to get them into band and chorus.
Where are those numbers?
Those are classes that run during the
Kelly,
day.
in looking at the numbers though, 43% is about where we have been historically.
Okay.
From my recollection, so that's not, The numbers are a sign of the decrease in the population.
Right. Okay. Which is nationwide and statewide too. So.
I guess we need a Mills program here so that we can start attracting more. So, okay, thank you.
All right, and then on page 21, 22, and 23 is a report from Consuela on outreach. So the first thing is you've got kind of a flyer that she is using to do that. You can see the number of posts that she has for 23, 24 on page 23. And the backside is where we are starting off this year.
Gonna make the plug again, people. Go to the YouTube channel, please, and like it.
Well, maybe the podcast will send them over. We'll see.
There you go.
We only need about what did I just do the quick math? We need about 570. Yep, roughly.
Yep. There you go. Maybe
get the grandparents to like it.
Can we put that on the sign on 151 and do a countdown? We need 570 more followers, and the following week we need 470 more followers.
Right.
That might be a good way.
And,
I'm writing down the suggestion right now. Share it tomorrow.
It's slightly off topic, but on this report, doesn't need to be tonight, but can we get an update on the bus, the We Are Mashpee mobile thing?
Yeah.
Just that I feel like it's been something we've talked about for over a year at this point.
Also, that, and I'd also like to know, now that the harvest is kind of done, do we have final numbers on, I know the food in the garden was donated, but do we know how many Mashpee families were impacted by donations from the garden? And if it goes through, are we putting the food back into the school for the lunch programs? Or
That is happening, yes.
That is happening.
But I don't know, we can look with.
Just with the
Consuela
donations,
on
I'm just curious how many Mashpee families were able to benefit from that garden.
It's a great question.
Yep. Okay, anything else? Okay, so Director of Finance is doing field hockey.
They won.
They won. Good.
I didn't
All right.
side text. I did side text, but they won, and it's their first game this season. They won. So.
There you go.
I know.
So on page 25, you have the budget to actual, and we are in good shape with $19,056,484.49 in the green, in the black. Okay. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or concerns on that.
Just glad to see us positive after the first month and a half, so thank you.
Yep. All right, and then on page 26, that is your revolving account report. And you can see where there were differences. We had some money spent out of community and school for the middle high school. School choice money, that $34,000, I believe. The next page will explain that in more detail. Considerable amount of that was towards the HVAC project. Food service, and again, you're supposed to spend that money on food, so that's what's happening there. $10,277. And then school to career, $5,500 was spent there. But we are still in the black with those revolving accounts, $4,171,586.
Just a request at some point, particularly on the grants, if we could get an update on those, because it seems to me that those don't move a lot and don't move quickly, so if they're, I don't think that was the intent of the grants, so if you could just give us what's going on versus just the number maybe next time.
So if you look on page 27, you can see the expenditures out of school choice there. And you can see the ones that are designated towards the HVAC project. So I don't know if there's any other questions on that. So I will write them down.
I will say, just as a tangent, so looking at food service, I know the snacks at the high school, they like run out within like 10, 15 minutes. So all the kids are very happy with the snacks, and they have good snacks. I got a snack bag the other day. So to whoever is running that, thank you. All of the high school boys are very excited.
So you're saying they run out? Do we have
They run
enough?
out.
Do we have enough?
Are they running out first, second? What lunch is running out?
Oh, that's the snacks.
You're talking
Snacks at the end.
Oh, after school, sorry.
Yeah.
No,
Sorry.
Is
they
there
run out.
sufficient?
I
Is there
just-
sufficient?
They are.
Okay, that's,
Sometimes my friends would be like, they ran out of snacks. And I'm like, you already got a snack.
okay.
Oh, so they want second.
They want seconds.
They can take
No, but that's a good question, like Kathy was saying, first, second, and how are you finding with the lunches? Because I know last year, they were having an issue with, like, by the time the kids got to third lunch, there wasn't a lot of stuff left.
Maybe that should be on our agenda for our joint meeting.
Yeah,
There we go.
I don't buy lunch, or I don't get lunch at school just because I personally don't want to. But I have to ask. I know I have some friends who they only get school
But that's a
lunch
good idea,
just
You have time to gather some information.
Yes,
Put it on
but
our
I'll be
agenda.
like, hey, what do you like?
Well, you'll have other students here
Yes, I'll
too.
have
Yes.
other
Yep.
kids.
Who can also ask their circles of people.
Right.
Yes.
Send out a survey.
So with that, I will turn it back over
Okay.
to you, Mr. Chairman.
What did I do with that? I think, what did I do with? Is it in here? Oh, there it is. Thank you for helping me. Okay. That's the minutes.
Oh,
That,
like it.
I will
Brian,
find it shortly.
It's efficiency and effectiveness working group.
Yeah,
So, I
it's a
don't know,
working
Brian, you want
group.
to start with that? Or do you want me to start with?
Oh, here it is. Okay.
Huh?
Fine, you start.
So we met via Zoom on September 4th. We kind of tried to narrow the scope down of what we discussed from the retreat as to what type of data we would like to look at. We had a really productive conversation with Dr. Hanscom and Dr. Thompson about the data, what's available, what the options are to look at. We all kind of agreed that yes, data points are going to be helpful. It's just a matter of what data we as a committee would like to see. Dr. Hanscom made a really great chart, which I still haven't emailed her to tell her that, but it's a really great chart. So
Did it have colors? I can't even remember.
It did have colors, which were helpful. But basically, based on some of the testing done in the school, I shouldn't say testing, the assessments that are done in the school, that kind of dictates when certain data points would be available to us. Some of them we would have baselines, some of them we might not have baselines. So it's really, I guess, coming back to us as a committee to say what data, and if anybody wants to jump in and say what if I'm remembering things wrong, but basically what we as a committee would like to see data-wise to kind of measure student achievement, student growth. Those are kind of the ones I started with, but I mean, we could really look at data points for a lot of different things, we found out, and the dashboard that Dr. Hanscom kind of talked to us about is going to be kind of implemented and can be used to really show us different things. So again, if anybody wants to jump on in and
can I add something?
Go.
Is that okay? Or Ryan, did you have something before I do? One, I just wanted to, I made a draft of a schedule, a calendar for when we would present which data. But the other piece I wanted to highlight is that we want to align it to when the students come. So in other words, in November, I'm recommending that we talk about the AP exam data, and because the middle high school is already presenting that night. In December, MCAS, QuashNet. In February, STAR, KCC. In April, DESA, which is our social emotional screener, Mashpee Middle High School, and then an overview of growth for the year in June. None of this is written in stone, but I took what is already on the annual calendar for your school committee meetings of which schools are coming which months and tried to tie it, because I really think it's most beneficial if you get quantitative data from us from what we present, but qualitatively get information from the students on the same topic. So I just wanted to put that out there as where we were, what we discussed, the four of us.
And again, it was really like we started with assessments, but if there were other data points, such as, I mean, tonight we looked at the student, the DESI information on our student body, the self-identifiers, that data too is something, it really could be data in any way, but it's kind of come back to us now to really hone that down. Again, I thought the draft was good.
And the schedule doesn't preclude you from asking for other data outside of the schedule. Yes. This would be like a general rule, and we can always give you more or less whatever, anything topical. But I think Kathy's point, Mrs. Lewis's point was valid, which is that it really is, other than MCAS and AP, it's been not happenstance, but a little bit of like when we talk about what. And we thought having systems that outlive all of us would be effective and efficient, which is what this working group focuses on.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that was kind of it. That was our little meeting.
Any thoughts, or people want to think about it and bring it back to the next meeting? Okay, so let's take that under advisement, and we'll carry it forward on the agenda for the next meeting. All right, next item, back on my agenda again, curriculum.
So
Kathy
Dr. Hanscom,
again.
I did miss that meeting.
I
did miss the meeting. I missed a meeting.
You two, why were two of you there then?
I don't know, because curriculum, I knew I had a second one and I just didn't write it down right, and so I apologize for not being at the curriculum subcommittee meeting, because I would have.
I show up to where I'm told, and I don't remember who's supposed to be there, so I'm sorry.
No, I'm totally taking responsibility. I'm a grown-up and should know my schedule, and I apologize to my colleagues here for not attending that meeting, so I am looking forward to this share out.
So then what, Kelly, why were you there?
I must be the alternate.
No, you're not.
No, you're part of the committee.
I don't know
I
why.
don't know who the alternate is, but, okay. So did you guys have a meeting?
We did.
We did.
Okay.
We talked about curriculum, and
You were there, right? Right?
I've been to so many, my name's on all
I
these.
know.
and I think that's what it is. There's so many of them, Kathy, that we're all like, all right,
you were
which
there.
one?
You were on Zoom. You were on Zoom.
Yeah.
You didn't have your camera on. You were going to Martha's Vineyard the next
Oh,
day.
yeah,
It was a
no,
Friday.
Yes.
And we talked, Kelly asked why we teach certain things at certain times, and we discussed the standards, the frameworks, the Massachusetts frameworks dictate what we teach when. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it feels like that was what we discussed at that meeting.
We did, we talked about, like, there's a curriculum that the state sets, but there's other stuff that we can teach the kids, different types of history, especially being in Mashpee.
So it was kind of more informative in a
And
sense?
we talked about, Kelly said she didn't know a lot of stuff, and so I talked about our communication strategies and how we can
Well, that
better,
was
more
productive.
effectively. So it
Yes, it was.
Okay, but do we still need to circle back to what we talked about at the retreat?
I don't remember what that was, so can
It
you
was
remind
to
me?
talk about kind of what was on the agenda here, kind of how to let the community know the curriculum and all of that, like that marketing piece of how do we then,
Part of the process.
yeah, like we were talking about the math, going back to the math
We did
curriculum.
discuss how we get input, and there are parent surveys that go out when we pilot new materials. There are student surveys that go out when we pilot new materials. So I think all of the pieces are in place that you want, we just haven't communicated effectively.
And I think that's what it was
And so I
coming down
think one of the
to.
things we talked about was having, as part of the data highlight and the student highlight, having a curriculum, that all be one.
Just because there's other pieces, I think, and we kind of know some of the buzzwords that get thrown out in our society today that I think might need better, I guess, I don't want to say marketing.
I know,
but
marketing's the only word I can think
I know,
of,
but communication and outreach to our families
Yeah.
as to what is
Clarity.
included in those curriculum
Right.
pieces so that people hear words on the news and aren't afraid of those words they hear on the news and understand what is really going on in our school district. Because I've fielded a couple questions from parents and I'm like, I don't know where you've heard that because that is absolutely not true. Or you don't really, let me explain to you what that really means kind of thing. And I guess that's what I think at the retreat we were
Yes.
trying to get to. So
we did talk about that, and it was trying to take the assessment conversation we had, the student work sort of qualitative conversation, and the curriculum, and tying it all together. So if that works if you're gonna consider that this month and then come back and talk about it, that's where we landed with the proposal.
yeah, because those two dovetailed off
Totally.
of each other at the retreat, as I recall.
Yes,
So
and I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. I'm a
I
grown
get
up. I messed up, and Fridays
No,
are always
I-
crazy for me. So why I ever said a Friday worked for me, I was not thinking that.
That's okay.
At any rate, moving on.
All right, next is outreach.
Brian.
Brian, do you want to take it or do you want me to hit it?
No, you can go, Dan.
All right, so I'm going to keep it succinct, 4 bullet points. First was we talked about kind of previous trials of how we have been trying to do outreach and communication, figuring out if those we wanted to continue or not. I think the sense was overall that what we did previous year was informative for the community, but not a lot of bang for the buck, so we decided not to go that direction. 3 areas that we want to look at, and I think we'll bring it to a subsequent meeting with some recommendations, is considering childcare for these meetings, just because I think outreach and communication starts right here, and figuring out if that's a model we want to pursue. And I think our consideration with that, though, was the amount of time these meetings take and whether or not that's feasible for families with young children. So that was a conversation. Second was identifying 10 kind of main, 10 main activities or community events that happen throughout the school year, and trying to figure out how the school committee can be represented at those. And then between the 5 of us, kind of assigning 2 per year for could have their not person, because I think that there should be an opportunity for all of us to be connected or contacted, but at least having representation. So maybe attending a PTO meeting or something of that sort to be a familiar face. So we're going to work on some of that stuff and bring it back again as a recommendation for our next meeting.
Excellent. Any questions, Fred?
We used to have a spreadsheet where we would kind of log the events that we did go to. Could we resurrect that and self-report? Like what? Because I do try to go to not just middle high school stuff because, well, I just I like to see the littles do their thing and it makes me happy. So
I was supposed to do something after that meeting that I'm now doing, which was Sherry sent me the list of events, and then Danny and Brian had asked that we, as an administrative team, start to make a recommendation of which are the most important, and also put it in the packet. And I did not.
But sometimes
Sherry about that. So I got the list from Sherry, and she did exactly what I asked, but I forgot to go any further than that.
That's okay. It's okay.
And I think with that, I think it's nice that we all have a presence, because I similarly,
agree, yeah.
and I think I've gone to other events as well, but there's also the sense of like being able to vocalize and to make it known that we're there as a committee member and not as a parent.
Which is why sometimes I like going to the ones that aren't at the middle high school, because that's not my parent group.
Correct.
You know what I mean? I'm there as a mom, as opposed, like tomorrow night, I would not want to be the school committee person because I'm there as a parent tomorrow night for open house.
Yep.
And I guess that for me is kind of what I look at for this instance. Like, yes, you may know more of the parents at the high school, and like those parents are going to come to me naturally anyways. Whereas if I'm in the Quashnet school, I don't necessarily know those parents as well, but I'm able to maybe be a little bit more objective when they come to me, because I don't have a child in this, but I still want to know what's going on. You know what I mean? So that's just my 2 cents on that, but I look forward to the recommendation. Thank you.
Well, we did talk about that in the meeting, kind of in the dynamics because of the policies with, if we're going to go into the schools, we're supposed to notify the chair and the superintendent, and then kind of like, where you wear multiple hats, and just kind of going back to the fact, like, not to say more events are more important than others, but kind of taking away, like the ribbon cutting ceremony at the garden. I did make it a point to go, not just in my capacity as the chair of the tribe, but also as a school committee person, to make sure that at least one of us from the board was there to be represented. And I think that just goes a long way, because Representative Vieira is there, everybody else is there, and you get to interact with the community. So.
Great ideas. All right. Policy committee.
Long and short end is we're looking for a waive on the first read for these policies. These are all policies that we felt should be recommended because they are coming out from MASC, and we didn't have any objections to them, and we need to make sure we're in compliance.
There's a lot to go through. There's a lot of changes. We did talk about it for a while, and like Brian said, it's a lot of information to absorb, and I give Eve all the credit in the world. She went to school all day and then came into, I want to say 147 pages. It's probably not that much, but it seemed like 147 pages, and she jumped right in. It's legal stuff. It's very confusing. There's 7 different ways that you can construe it. So I think if we all took, the time to actually go through it and read it before we voted, I mean, we have to approve it anyway to stay in compliance. But I think if we actually all sit and go through this and read it, just so that we understand better, if we have any questions, we can contact legal and ask them those questions. I think it'll just be more beneficial to us as a committee.
These are all policy changes to align with the changes in Title IX.
Yeah.
And we did discuss that the waiving of the first read is recommended because we are out of compliance in our policies currently, because the law changed August 1st, 2024. We just got this guidance, but I would just encourage that.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to waive the first read.
And I'd like to second that.
All right, any further discussion on that? Hearing none. Dan?
I vote yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yep.
And I'll vote yes too. And then there's another vote.
I'll make a motion that we approve the recommendation of the policy subcommittee as presented tonight in terms of the policies, the slate of policies.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? I'll just make a comment that if you do have any subsequent questions, you can always bring them at the next school committee meeting, or bring them up to the policy subcommittee. Okay. Any other comments? None?
I do want to amend though, this does not include the cell phone policy which was presented. This is only the ones, I guess I should read them out.
That are
really.
listed here.
Yeah.
On the
Oh,
agenda.
they're listed on the agenda. Okay.
The cell phone is not.
Okay, sorry, I was looking at the other one. Okay, never mind.
We did also, Mr. Chair, we did decide that we would hold another meeting to review the request that you had sent about going through. I know we're going to look at the resolutions.
Yes, for mass.
Yeah, but then we had also decided that we would get back together to provide a recommendation before, I think it was October. So we do have another meeting.
Yeah, we have another
on the
meeting.
policy subcommittee for that.
Yeah. No. Oh, okay. Well, we're not to that yet.
Yeah.
Okay. That's,
Just so you know.
that'll help. Okay, so we have a first and a second to approve the above named policies as presented. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Dan, how do you vote?
I'm a yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
And I vote yes too, so all approved. All right. Next on our agenda here is unassigned or unfinished business. So the joint meeting with the Wampanoag Tribe Council, they're proposing October 23rd at 5:30 p.m. I don't know how that works for people's schedules.
I'm fine with that.
I'm not sure yet if I have to chair an alternative committee, but I will keep an eye on that.
Okay. Kelly, what's yours look like?
Mine works. It's actually on my calendar already.
So that's a Monday.
It's a
No,
Wednesday.
it's
Oh,
a
it's a Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday.
Yes, it's a Wednesday.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at September. I should get to the right month. 23rd. That should be okay.
And that's at the tribal center, right?
Yeah, it's Charleston. Okay, so is it affirmative that we can respond back that we can all make that meeting? Okay. Sherry, if you'll please respond, I would appreciate it. Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chair, should we take an official motion just because we'll probably have an established quorum, or should we put it on the next agenda maybe? I don't know.
I'm not sure what you're asking, Brian.
Because if we're going to convene with the joint meeting with the tribe, if there's more than 3 of us, that would constitute a meeting. And this
It'll be a
meeting,
joint meeting.
We just
Yeah,
have to post it as a
but this
meeting. We
isn't
don't,
on our schedules, right? Like our.
but you can call an extra meeting. It just needs to be posted.
We'll post this. We'll
Okay.
post
As
it.
long as we didn't need a motion.
Yeah, no, we don't need to
no,
vote on
yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's why I didn't understand what you were
Yeah.
asking.
I get
Yeah,
confused.
we will post this as an official meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
Official joint meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just needed to confirm tonight that that's
That
the
date
and the
works.
time. Okay. All right. Next on your busy schedule here, October 1st is the date that has been selected for the public presentation of the bullying prevention and intervention plan at the high school auditorium. Couple things on here that I think are still open in regard to the objectives and what we're trying to accomplish, and make sure that we have defined those. We also then need to do a flyer so it can be shared out, and I don't think we've done anything on that. And Dr. Thompson has reached out to an individual in regard to facilitation, and I'm not sure if you've got.
Yeah, so I spoke to her last Thursday, and she was getting married over the weekend. And I said, great, I'll send you an email on Monday. I didn't, and she didn't respond to the email. I've called both Tuesday and Wednesday and left messages. So I don't know whether she's on a honeymoon or what, but I will continue to contact her with the
okay.
revised piece. We've connected once. She called me back 2 days before a wedding to say, I can't talk now, I'll talk when the wedding's over. And I said, well, congratulations, good luck. I'm thinking that she didn't say that she was going to be on a honeymoon, so hopefully it's not a 5-week honeymoon.
All right. So that's probably fortuitous, but because we really haven't definitively defined the objectives here and what we're wanting that facilitator to accomplish. I took a stab at trying to come up with some high-level objectives, because I think we've got this plan for 2 hours, based upon the presentation that the lawyer did for this committee. That will eat up half of that time, if not potentially more, if there are questions.
I honestly thought it was going to be a mirror version, but like for parents of what we were presented, so that it was clearly understood the process, the different pieces that go into it, school response, like basically I thought it was going to be a similar presentation to what we received, because I felt that outlined everything from the definition of bullying, when people are like, oh, it's bullying, but then legally the definition, no, it's not. Like, that was my understanding of what this was going to be. I guess that would be my goal and objective, would be to clarify for parents and families, the things that we learned and may or may not have already known about our bullying prevention and intervention plan, and kind of go over those definitions, go over the different reporting mechanisms, go over the school response to them, go over the reporting of incidents, and how the school, what our communication plan is, for when instances, to me, that was what the goal was going to be. If that's not, the goal any longer, I guess I'm open to hearing what people feel the goal should be, but.
Well, what I hear is, what I thought was, we wanted a more interactive.
Yeah, and I could have, and this could me just be making up stuff at this point, but I thought our last conversation, my recollection was that we were going to do kind of a two-parter for that 2 hours. The first half was going to be having someone come in and do the legal logistics. Thank you, Eve.
Thank you.
Of what this looks like, what are the policies, kind of mirroring what you talked about. So we talked about having the person who did come and do the presentation kind of do that first hour, and then the second hour was going to be now for the individuals who have come to this training, who feel like they want to vocalize their concerns and what they've seen and their pain points, and having more of the community feedback around these topics. It was kind of the psychoeducation, and then the processing of what has this experience been for you?
Having that understanding now, what concerns do you still have?
Yeah, and just give us feedback. What are you seeing? What do you hear? What do we need to know? How does that align, not align? So it was the education and then the information gathering, and then we could take that information back to the committee here, process it, and figure out how that aligns or doesn't align.
Right, because we may have a process, but if the process isn't working, we need to know.
But I also think there needs to be an understanding of the process before we can.
Well, right.
Yeah.
So 2 objectives in my mind: educating the community, as Kathy shared, and then number 2 is let's create a forum for individuals to vocalize their concerns where it's facilitated and safe, with the understanding that we're going to again process that information.
Right.
So that seems to me to be 2 really targeted thoughts.
Is that date set in stone, October 1st? Do we have any leeway with that date?
I thought that was the date we all kind of.
Well,
the date the attorney is scheduled.
That's the date that we've set with the attorney. Is there a conflict that we?
No, I'm just saying we're trying to get a facilitator, and David has voiced his concern about the return calls from his facilitator. I mean, it's September 18th, right? What if she doesn't, do we have a backup? Do we have a backup plan? Do we have a backup facilitator?
Well, I have a thought. If for some reason this doesn't seem to pan out, we obviously just had a presentation by Ms. Stevenson. Is there an opportunity to have some collaboration there? If their skill set is DIB, to have them be the safe facilitation of this? I don't know if that's their volunteer skill set or how they could be a part of it, but I'm just proposing, I think we have a hopeful plan, right, with having someone who can come in who does this work, and if not, maybe let's construct a plan B and C, but keep the date.
And talk to Mrs. Blackburn too, see if she's any good. Maybe she has.
And I think of again she presented on the county's supports, and I think of someone like Leslie DeSantis, again I'm name dropping here, but is there someone from the county who would prospectively also be willing to be that facilitator?
We're part of Barnstable County. They should be able to help us.
Right.
If we ask.
We're on the island.
All right.
No, I agree with everyone. I think this should be one of our first events, though, where we do offer childcare, maybe. because
Yes,
I think
definitely.
Yes.
It's a great way to roll it out.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be like, we can reach out to, if there aren't students, I mean.
Oh, no, we have the.
I was gonna say,
So,
say it. Rip the Band-Aid, Hope.
well, here's the thing. We don't know what you want. Like what you just said, it's September 18th, and is Sherry gonna go back and make a flyer out of what? Like, I think what we're struggling
So we
with,
have the lawyer coming in,
but
right? The attorney
that's
is
a
doing the
definite.
presentation. So I
Yes.
think the flyer can say, again, we have a 2-hour session. First hour is going to be, how long was the presentation?
Well, she cut it short, that's the thing, like, if she went her whole presentation.
Yeah, probably, she could probably do a full hour.
Yeah,
So then let's say an hour presentation on the bullying
presentation.
prevention, yada, yada.
and that way
those
people can come
pieces.
to the first part if they wanna just come to the first part.
Right, and then question and answer
And then,
afterwards.
I don't think we need to identify in this moment.
Discussion.
Who's going to be
Yeah,
facilitating.
discussion.
Open discussion.
Just tell, I just wanna make sure, because
Understood.
Sherry, I know, reached
Yeah.
out and was like, I don't really know how to make this flyer.
Sorry to leave you hanging.
I'm sorry.
No, more than, we didn't wanna speak on your behalf, I think is.
No.
Can we just work on maybe like an itinerary, like if Kathy worked on a draft itinerary with the stuff that you're talking about in a draft form, and then maybe
Well, the
Dan or
lawyer
one of
kinda-
us work on a flyer or something?
Do you
To help.
have a copy of what I sent you, David?
The thing for the facilitator, yes,
Yeah. Can you pull that up?
maybe.
I took a stab at what you're talking
Okay. Well, I think if we have something like that, that would help us.
about.
Itinerary wise, what are we trying to establish?
I feel like the lawyer has an
I think
itinerary
like
with
you
her
just talked about,
presentation,
what, the presentation first, then.
Then discussion.
Q&A or stuff
Right.
like
that.
open discussion.
Yeah, so I think
Right,
it's just, in my viewpoint, it's a 2-part session.
And it doesn't have to be very wordy,
Yeah.
it should be a very succinct flyer.
No, this is extremely helpful, we just,
I think the less we put on it, the less
I'm
confused they're
sorry,
gonna
Sherry,
be.
I didn't
No,
see the
and-
email.
I wasn't at the last meeting, so I didn't really know how to direct.
Yeah,
We didn't get
it was a lot of brainstorming.
I did hear that.
I can't really cast it. Do you want me to share it with everybody else, or?
You can just read it.
Okay, so background, the Mashpee School Committee is concerned about the implicit and explicit bullying of students in the Mashpee Public Schools and is working to engage and inform students and parents about what constitutes bullying, how to report it, and the process the school takes to address bullying. Public meeting with students, parents, community members, and other stakeholders has been scheduled for October 1st at 6 p.m. By the Mashpee School Committee for the following: presentation by school attorney on Massachusetts laws related to school bullying. 2, presentation of Mashpee bullying policies and procedures. Facilitated question and answer session.
Okay, too wordy. Sorry, I'm gonna say that right now. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's the.
Yeah, I think it just
general
needs to be
concept.
like, okay.
And then you can use your
I'll send
imagination.
you something,
But that was for
Yes.
the facilitator to
Okay,
understand what we.
yeah.
But I think once we identify who the facilitator is, that goes a long way to put the facilitator's name on that flyer. And then also, if we are gonna offer childcare, that's
Do-
something we would want
Yeah.
on the
Do we
flyer.
have to name the
Or if
facilitator
we're
on the
doing
flyer?
door
No.
prizes, or
I
if
don't
we're
think we
doing
need to
other
name the
stuff, I think
facilitator.
to engage them.
Oh, door prizes is a good idea, but I don't
Yeah,
know
but
if we
just
can
different
as a
stuff
school
like that.
committee, like.
Do we have stress balls? Mashpee stress balls?
I am not the person to
Teddy
ask
bears.
this. I mean, Consuelo would be the person to ask, maybe the superintendent, I don't know, but I just know that it's coming real close.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't
And
seen a Mashpee stress.
you're all volunteers, which I totally get, but we don't know how to put forward what you want if we're not, and I'm speaking on behalf of Sherry, I shouldn't, I mean,
So I think if we can put together a first stab of it, by the end of the week and get that, sent out to the committee members and they can provide feedback, that would help.
Do we have a group of students, I'm sorry, I've been up since 4 a.m., that is interested in doing the childcare?
oh yeah, that's easy. We
Okay.
do that for our LPAC meeting, we do it for the town meeting, we do it all the time.
All right.
I just,
And if there's not students, I'm sure you could reach out to scouting organizations or
Yeah,
whatever.
I'm not
Yeah,
worried
because I know
about
that
that.
somebody reached out to the Boy Scouts and asked them about, there was a function that was going on that they asked, you know.
So just a question. So on that agenda, David, that you just read,
That just closed, yes. Yeah.
so the first part was the lawyer
Yeah.
speaking the legalese. Then there's a part of talking about Mashpee policies.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure who is presenting that.
That's
Well,
embedded in the lawyer.
Yeah,
I was
the
just gonna say
lawyer.
the lawyer talks
It
about
is.
that.
Yeah,
That's
because
what
our
she-
policies are what the lawyer presented.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it'll,
So there's
Including
really
the
only
process-
two pieces.
The reporting
Yes.
process?
Yes.
Yes.
it's all mandated by,
We didn't make any of that up.
no.
No,
Okay.
it's all, it's, the reality is the law is so prescriptive, how it's implemented is pretty much the same, no matter which district you are.
So the law prescribes the form that the
Yes.
people have to
Yep.
fill out?
Mhm.
And what's
There is
What
on
has to
actually
be in
not
the
a
form.
requirement for a person to fill out a form in order to report bullying and to initiate an investigation. But there is a form that we use to do our analysis and do the
Right.
Right,
investigation.
is that a prescribed
It's a
form?
prescribed form, yes.
Okay. I didn't,
Yep.
see, I learned something new. I thought that
Yeah,
was.
so
the-
all of that had to be sent to DESE
Okay,
It's every,
8 years ago,
Well,
and whatever
This was
it
part of the
originally,
presentation we had
and
in
it had
the,
to be, and it had to be approved by DESE.
Yeah.
okay, got it.
And just to clarify, the second half is not question and answers about the policy.
It's a discussion.
It's a discussion.
about-
Facilitated,
Lived
well, it
experience.
says, again, facilitated discussion, we can change that.
But yeah, I think if we take it even out as I mean, maybe facilitator in the sense of who they're recognizing to speak, but I do think it should be a free flow conversation of
Well,
open sharing of ideas.
Yeah, so
my
this,
opinion, the facilitator's there to help move the conversation.
And to keep it a
So
safe
that we're
space.
not
at
there
the
to
end of the day.
midnight.
Because if people aren't saying anything, they can
Right.
help answer some.
right, so there's actually two parts to this. One is the policies, procedures, reporting, investigating. And the other part of it is what's being done to be anti-bullying or prevent bullying. That's not prescribed by law. So there's two different things here. How are you building a culture where these sort of things is not acceptable? So, if you have that culture, it's pretty hard to have it be 100% of the time.
Yeah.
But you're still gonna have kids who or adults, as the case may be, make bad decisions because of bad situations, so.
And with the itinerary thing, I was thinking about more like the logistics. Like, is this going to be something where what Dawn had put together, we're going to ask the superintendent to read that first before we introduce the lawyer, before we introduce, or is it going to be something like that?
Oh, so you're looking like,
What I
just like
meant-
opening comments?
Yeah, just for us. So then that way
Oh,
it's
yeah.
an outline
Yeah.
on what we're doing, which would help
Yep.
Sherry draft the agenda. Or I know when we have Dr. Khalees Warnham come in, it's like, oh, Dr. Khalees Warnham is coming, and people can do their research and
Yep.
their, what they need to do, their due diligence to look into this person or whoever it might be. I think they know who our attorneys are or whoever's coming in to do this, but that's just kind of what I was thinking. So.
Yeah, I was hung up on, is this the flyer? So that's my bad.
No,
Yeah.
no.
I misunderstood that as well, so I apologize.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Anything else on that?
Sherry, you good? Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna, in regard to the permanent search, or the search for the permanent superintendent, I did have some discussions with consultants, and I will share that in executive session. I have a recommendation for the committee and a contract to review. So we will handle that in executive session.
Did you provide, do we know, can we see the list of all the consultants you spoke with before we get to that executive session, or, like, just out of curiosity, or will you present that at the executive session?
I'll present that in executive session.
Okay.
Okay. All right. New business, we need to appoint a representative. I thought we did that. To the capital improvement committee?
Previously Superintendent DeBoer was
Oh, that's
the
right.
representative, and I forgot, I do have like an idea that Director of Finance Lopes would be a phenomenal representative on the capital improvement committee.
She's not here.
No, but I did talk to her. I swear I did.
She's not here to say no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It
And she
feels
attends
like
those meetings.
she would
She
be a
does.
great
Generally,
fit,
So,
because she goes to all of them, but that's none of my business. But well, it is. I'm a taxpayer. I guess it is, but not sitting at this table. It's not. Anyway, I meant to put that out there to you all earlier, and I forgot. So
So
I'm
this is the
sorry.
request to make a motion to appoint
Ashley.
Ashley Lopes as the,
Only if you want to, and I didn't even talk to Dave.
I will make that motion.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Brian will second that motion. Any further discussion?
Don't we also
Ashley,
have a
you'll-
liaison or something, or?
She's gonna.
Because I know in the past.
We did have a liaison because I served as liaison to that committee
Yeah,
once.
I remember going to a meeting when Nicole was the chair, and we both had to go for some
I went when
reason.
George was the chair, and it was for the windows.
Yeah, I think it was for the HVAC.
So
So
historically, the finance working group people, which usually includes the chair and another person, are the people who go to represent the school committee
Yeah.
at
For
CIP.
For items that are on CIP.
but we have a liaison to it, do we not? I thought we have a liaison to that committee.
I
Do
don't
we
know that
have-
it's on the
is-
list
I don't
of
thi-
liaisons.
Do we have I don't think
No?
CIP's on the
No.
list.
Okay. Maybe I'm
Building-
thinking building and
Building.
construction.
and
Planning and
construction.
construction, definitely.
That maybe that's the one I'm
Yes.
thinking of, okay.
Okay. So
Do
we
we,
have,
do we want a liaison to?
Well, if we have an appointed representative, we don't really, that would be redundant, I think.
yeah, I don't think we need to.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion?
Yeah, I think my only hesitation would be the fact that we're filling these seats with staff and personnel, but previously it was the superintendent. So when we hire a permanent superintendent, would we revisit this, or would we just say, oh,
I think
okay,
we'd
this
have
person's
to.
gonna be it?
Yes.
It does,
Okay.
it's not a permanent appointment.
Yeah, I understand, but yeah.
Yearly.
And I should have said, that was what I was thinking, given the interim nature of some of the roles right now. But I would absolutely imagine
So she
the
would be the
superintendent would be the person you'd eventually want on there, the permanent.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have
Fine.
clarified
No,
that.
it's okay.
All right, any further discussion?
No.
Dan,
I vote yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
And I vote yes too.
I'm sorry, who was the second on that one? I lost the second.
Did I second?
Brian was the
Brian
second.
seconded.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, back to Superintendent Thompson in regard to upcoming events.
Yeah, those are on page 33 in your packet.
So then can I clarify, Kathy, that's what I was talking about when you said, do we still get the list of things that are?
No, we had a Google Doc that we shared that we would import, like, we all had access to it, and we would just type, like, any trainings we went, like, so any of the conferences or, like, the learning lunches that MASC
Totally,
does,
okay.
in addition to
All the
school
other-
events
Went to the
or
barbecue.
or like even our subcommittee meetings, we would put in when we did, it was kind of just to track, it was like a transparency piece. I think Nicole implemented it.
Then I don't know what that is, and Sherry does.
You have the template for it, and I used to use it all the time because I found it helpful to be like, okay, if anybody ever asked me like what I did during the year as a school committee member, I had like, here's everything I did. Like, if I was the only one using it, though, I don't want to like impose something that no one else is using. That's all. It was just, it was helpful to have that one central place where we all could kind of see, and that way we'd all be like, okay,
That makes-
somebody did show up to that
Yeah.
event, or somebody did go to that conference, or we had representation at this table. Like, it was nice to see where my colleagues and they could see what I was doing. So it was like, 'cause we don't
I just
always-
misunderstood you,
No, it's
so I'm
okay.
sorry
It's
about
all right.
that.
So the one thing that's on this list that I've already mentioned has changed is the Friday the 20th back to school barbecue.
That's on the
That's moving
27th.
to the 27th.
Okay.
But that's up to date, and that would bring us through our next school committee meeting.
All right.
Okay?
Just informational, October 21st is town meeting. And I thought I only saw one item on the agenda.
For town meeting?
Was it, I don't know how many things there were on the warrant. Four? Four articles. So, my recommendation is be there for 7 or you might miss it.
Chatham had a one agenda item on Monday.
What?
We were in and out in 45 minutes.
45 minutes?
It was one article.
That's been huge for 45 minutes.
It was $4 million or something,
Yeah.
but.
I don't know
At
what
any
they are,
rate.
but Anyways, so that's informational. The mass conference, has everyone given you whether they're planning to attend?
I have Kathy, excellent superintendent, as well as superintendent.
Okay. I'll double check my schedule, but.
It's
um,
fun, guys.
I had a blast last year.
Just saying, it's nice to talk to other people in Massachusetts about
No, it is.
what's going on. So highly
What
recommend.
days is that?
Wednesday. Sorry.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
No, I was
Wednesday
gonna.
through Saturday?
Yes, but Wednesday. Wednesday's a little. I think that this Wednesday they switched it because that's the resolutions. Like, so I don't know if everybody needs to be there on Wednesday. They do run some things on Wednesday, but
Yeah, it tends to start off more superintendent-y on Wednesday and Thursday, and then becomes more
And they-
school committee on.
and last year it started like around noon they didn't really have as much.
Yeah, it starts half day on
Yeah,
Wednesday.
so.
And the other thing, for
I will look at
Kelly,
my schedule, sorry.
I know that there was a training that I attended during that
She's already
conference.
done the charting, of course.
Oh, okay.
But, plug for MASC Division 7, we have our little meeting with our fellow Cape and Islands school committee members,
Oh, yeah.
where we can all kind of talk about what we need as school committee members on the Cape and what our districts are facing. It's a great forum for us to kind of get together and talk. And I'll wait till you get to item, well,
It's kind of quaint.
can I mention a change to our division leadership, or do you want me to wait till the
No,
end?
go ahead.
So recently, MASC held their elections for officers, and the Division 7 president has been made the secretary treasurer-elect for 2026, I think. So that means that Tina Gaines, who is the vice chair currently for Division 7, will be moving, or vice president, will be moving up to president, and I, as secretary treasurer, moving up to vice president effective January 1st. So we will be needing a secretary treasurer, but I don't know if there's a rule about 2 people in a school district, but if you were talking to any other school committee members from other towns, let them know, please, that we will be needing a secretary treasurer.
Okay.
And that's stuff we talk about at the meeting.
Fair enough. Okay. In your handouts, I believe, was a copy of all of the resolutions. And the intent tonight was to do a first read of these, and then we have time for doing a second read at the next meeting and vote on them.
Mr. Chair, didn't we send out a survey or something previously just to see what our interest was, so we can kind of populate something to give feedback and say, okay, 3 or 4 of us agreed with this resolution, but then we kind of voted no, right? Is that the process before?
What was it?
I don't recall doing that.
Or did we go, in the meeting, didn't we go through them and?
I think we've done it both ways.
Yeah.
I mean,
My intent was just to go through it and, however, if you have issues or concerns about it, raise it in the discussion, and then we vote, and it goes however it goes. We did not have complete consensus on all of the articles last time, as I recall.
and I voted as we voted.
Yeah.
And presented the amendment that was presented, which was defeated, but it was still presented. And whoever is our representative at the resolutions, at the meeting when all of these are taken up, would do the same, I would think. So another fun day, or maybe it's just me who thinks it's fun.
All right. Anything else? So, do I have a motion to, we don't need a motion. So we're good on that. Okay. For the executive session, that would be the next item on the agenda. Obviously, we don't have a facilitator contract review, so that will come off of rules.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to move to go into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Subset 2, to conduct negotiations with non-union personnel and to reconvene an open session regarding the superintendent search consultant contract.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, Dan,
I vote yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
and I vote yes, so it's unanimous. All right, we're in executive session.